A while later, they find themselves shaking upon seeing Lorgar's bruised and battered state. The sheer amount of injuries she sustained makes everyone question what in the world she went through. The farmer guy is even doubting if she can be helped at all. After all, Nana and Lily aren't in the city right now, so they gotta think of alternatives before it's too late. Suddenly, the knights patrolling the city hear sirens blaring. Sirens that represent the highest level of urgency. While the senior knight understands the weight of this alarm, the common citizens have no clue what it's all about. So the senior knight takes it upon himself to educate the masses, explaining that this is a warning about enemy infiltration, and everyone is ordered to get into their homes and clear the streets. The soldiers go on high alert, increasing personnel on the boundary wall. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Sister Wendy is getting grilled by Baroff, who's going bonkers out of frustration because she rang the highest level alarm based on some injured witch murmuring unverified intel. Well, little does Baroff know, Lorgar had been warning them about devils that are practically breathing down their necks. But this crusty old coot doesn't seem to take her seriously. That's when Pasha steps in to calm the bald old man down, because she believes Wendy did the right thing. Anything related to devils has to be taken seriously. It's not like they're up against some dumb monsters. Baroff argues that they haven't spotted a single trace of these devils, so blaring the highest level alarm like that wasn't necessary. Well, it looks like Ash is willing to take the devil threat seriously. You see, Ash can boldly claim that Lorgar is a tough lady when it comes to fighting. So, given how critically injured she is, it's only right to assume she must have fought more than 10 devils at once. Also, the map they found on her indicates she was likely in the Barren Lands when she fought them, and it makes no sense for devils to be roaming around the Barren Lands. Since no one knows what their main agenda is, everyone in Neverwinter's gotta be on high alert, ready to face the threat. Baroff fears they might have to abandon the original plan His Majesty gave them to follow. Wendy assures the old man not to worry about it. You see, she already sent a message to the north, and she's sure Roland will pass down his orders very soon. 1 week passes by like a gentle breeze, and it seems like there's been no sign of the devils at all. Tilly is concerned about the public's reaction. They might think the trouble they're about to face has something to do with the arrival of the Sleeping Island witches. But Baroff assures her that City Hall has everything under control. Nobody's pointing fingers at the witches. Tilly's relieved to hear that as she was worried some scumbags might try to spread rumors about the witches being spies sent by the devils. Right then, a little witch comes rushing in to report that the wolf girl is finally awake. Wendy is overjoyed to hear the news, and everyone decides to go see her. Baroff also expresses his desire to tag along, but Ash shuts this over-the-top old bastard down, reminding him that it's a lady's bedroom, so it's only natural for this baldy to wait outside. Honestly, I've started to hate Baroff, because he's the most realistic person in this whole series. He doesn't react like some little anime bitch. We then cut back to the severely injured Lorgar, who's struggling to even breathe. The only reason she's still alive is thanks to Sister Dusk's symbiotic seed. Given how critical her situation is, the only person who can save her is Nana. Lorgar expresses her gratitude to the girl who's literally her lifeline at this moment. But it doesn't seem like Dusk has any complaints about the exhausting job she's doing. After all, she's getting to enjoy chaos drinks every day, so it's actually kinda cozy in here. Back to business. Ash wants to know what exactly Lorgar encountered in the Barren Lands. Lorgar mentions sightings of devils. They were in large groups, heading toward the Tequila Ruins. There were so many of them, she couldn't even count. Some of the devils were massive and grotesque, something out of nightmares. These creepy skeletal creatures had countless tubes from their bodies digging into the ground, killing all the plant life around them. It was like they were sucking the life force out of everything they touched. She also saw land stained with crimson fog, and the devil army sinking into the ground like they were setting up camp. As for how she ended up so messed up, she simply underestimated them. A devil with a horn alerted the others ahead of time, so while she was retreating, she got sabotaged. This freaks Dusk out a bit, who had just been chilling a moment ago. Up till now, she thought devils were just muscly beasts with no intelligence. But it turns out that only applies to low-tier devils. There was probably a high-tier devil calling the shots. That's when Ash pats Lorgar, acknowledging the bravery and courage she showed back there. To think she stood against an unknown danger all by herself, and even managed to retreat alive, that's a damn impressive feat. When Ash praises you for your bravery and warrior spirit, you know you've reached the pinnacle of being a true warrior. Later, the witches discuss the new development with the witches of Tequila. After hearing everything, Pasha comes to the verdict that they can't let the devils take over the Tequila Ruins. If those Blackstone towers get built there, the red fog will definitely spread across the mountains of despair. And once that happens, the devils will be unstoppable. This is their chance to strike before the devils do, especially since the devils have ended up exposing their motives. Then Old Man Baroff interjects, more concerned about Neverwinter City's financial and economic state. As far as he's concerned, keeping Neverwinter's gates closed is causing substantial financial losses. Since the devils aren't attacking immediately, that emergency alarm ended up doing more harm than good, with farmers abandoning their fields. One of the knights admits Neverwinter City needs a more reliable alarm system. Maybe building some beacon towers on the borders would be a viable option. Just take a look at Roland in the background here. How the heck is he here? He's supposed to be in the Holy City leading the army. Looks like a glitch in the Matrix if you ask me. Back to business, Pasha decides to take on the scouting task herself. Now that they know exactly where the devils are, the tool in her hands can spy on them. The catch is they'll need someone to plant an illusion relic on the Tequila ruins beforehand to get live footage. Alethea isn't worried about it at all. After all, every Divine Judgment witch has already dedicated their life to defeating the devils, so a few sacrifices mean nothing. But Tilly has another plan, one that requires no sacrifices. She wants to entrust the Sleeping Spell witches with the mission. If you don't remember, Sleeping Spell is a business run by the Slumber Island witches, providing services to anyone willing to pay fat cash. With the diverse abilities of the Sleeping Spell witches, pulling off this task won't be hard. Plus, it's a great opportunity for these newly joined witches to prove their worth and get acknowledged by everyone. In the next scene, Roland is sitting alone, lost in thought. Looks like his previous appearance in that meeting was just a mistake in the art. He's still away leading the army. Nightingale pulls him out of his daze and points out that he's dozing off again. He's been acting strange like this ever since retiring from the Shadow Church, which makes her wonder if something's weighing on his mind. Turns out there is. It's about that chief disciple from his dreams who looks a lot like the high-tier witch he saw in the visuals. Nightingale suggests he share his problems with Anna. She might have a solution. But Roland believes Anna won't help. In fact, no one can help him. He has to figure it out on his own. He even tells Nightingale not to tell anyone about his problems. Back to that high-tier witch with the patch over her face. We cut to when Roland first saw her in the visuals. Curious, he asked Agatha and Isabella if they knew anything about her, but neither had a clue. That woman was already a legend even back in Agatha's era. She was once famous. In the present, Roland decides to visit the Dream Realm again because his curiosity is gnawing at him, and he wants answers immediately. The next scene shows him in the dream world. The first thing he does is pick up his phone and call Garcia, interrupting her regular jogging routine. He has some questions he wants answered and is hoping to meet her today. He's even willing to treat her to breakfast. After setting up a meetup place, he puts his shirt on and heads out. Zero is also there, still half asleep. She drags herself up and starts getting breakfast ready, but Roland pushes her toward the restroom, telling her there's no need to make food. He'll bring breakfast when he gets back. With that, he leaves. A while later, Roland and Garcia sit at a ramen shop, ordering 2 beef noodle bowls. The lady looks disappointed he picked a street-side shop for breakfast, especially since he's with a girl. Well, Roland picked it out of convenience. He wanted to bring breakfast to Zero, so if he ate somewhere far away, he'd be late. Their food arrives and Garcia digs in right away. The elegant way she uses chopsticks surprises Roland. He thought she'd struggle with street food, but her proficiency with the chopsticks makes sense. This lady has lived here almost 10 years, so she's used to every bit of life here. Getting back on topic, she asks him why he wanted to meet so abruptly, though she makes it clear up front that the association won't help him with anything illegal. Roland simply says he wants to meet her master, the chief disciple. He claims he only wants to apologize in person for his misconduct during their last meeting. Garcia doesn't beat around the bush and makes it clear her master won't meet with insincere people who don't honor their commitments. Roland keeps coaxing her, and eventually the lady decides to call her master since he sincerely wants to apologize. She's cautious while calling because she doesn't want to upset her master. After the short talk on the call, Garcia feels immensely disappointed as she reveals that her master refused his request to meet in person. Her impression of Roland seems completely shattered beyond repair, and just hearing his name brought an immediate drop in her mood. Roland then reflects back on the last small talk he had with that woman, and if he takes that conversation into account, it's pretty unusual for him to be turned down like this. Anyway, since she won't come to meet him personally, he decides to visit the headquarters himself. But Garcia reminds him that he can only do that after completing a mission on his own and officially becoming a martialist. Well, the conditions aren't too harsh, so Roland is confident he'll be making his trip to headquarters soon enough. He then asks about the Battle of Divine Will, the one chief disciple Lan had mentioned. Garcia reveals that her master has a deep love for a certain book written half a century ago. The book talks about the dawn and development of civilization, calling it the will of the divine. Of course, this divine isn't a person. It's more like a rule, or maybe the ultimate purpose behind everything. It sounds like an entirely new kind of book with content he has absolutely no clue about, just like that math book from before. He expresses his desire to take a look at it, and Garcia reminds him that the book is at headquarters. She'll borrow it from the library when she heads back. He then snaps back to the real world. He went into the dream world in search of answers, only to return with even more confusion clouding his mind. That's when Lightning shows up with an important message straight from Neverwinter. Looks like Roland is finally learning that an army of devils has made an early appearance in the Badlands. So in the next scene, he calls all the representatives and breaks the news about this unexpected development. Given this devil crap popping out of nowhere, he has no choice but to derail from their current plan. From this point onward, he wants all troops to prepare for a retreat from the Holy City. Meanwhile, he himself plans to head back to Neverwinter City as soon as possible. As for the Dawn Kingdom, he has figured out what needs to be done. Even though he's got to retreat for now, the leader of Dawn must still pay the price. The fury of the Wimbledons may be late, but it never disappears. So for now, the First Army will fall back. A while later, Roland has a private chat with Andrea about how they're going to handle the situation in the Dawn Kingdom. It goes without saying that the First Army's main forces need to return and defend Neverwinter, so they'll have to change the plan. The Divine Judgment Witches will be staying here, and they can handle Appin while breaking no sweat. To restore order in Dawn, the three major families will have to step up and take over from here. Andrea worries that if those three families run the kingdom, Roland will gain nothing in return. But this wise king believes it's better than getting nothing at all. At the very least, he can still save Otto's life. Just like he said during the meeting, he won't abandon those who contributed to the future of Greycastle. Andrea finds it kind of amusing that he is actually allocating resources just to keep Otto alive, just like Iris said he would. Apparently, Roland being merciful wasn't a surprise. Iris already knew he'd help Otto before she even left. If she's being honest, it was Iris's words that pushed her to ask Roland to help Dawn's people. Later, as the king sits in his office, Iris comes by to keep him company. Well, she's actually here to share her thoughts, suggesting they don't interfere too much with the Dawn Kingdom. Of course, Nightingale's annoyed. Iris was the one who convinced Andrea to ask Roland to save the people. But now, she's the one saying not to interfere with Dawn's business. Iris explains that the circumstances have changed. Originally, they could have taken over the Dawn Kingdom entirely by following Roland's plan. But now, they'll only end up with a decent allies. So instead, she suggests letting the kingdom fall into chaos. After the battle in the Old Holy City, Appin lost the power to rule. Very soon, everything's going to break apart in Dawn. And the reason she wants chaos to take over is because of witches. See, the Dawn Kingdom's location is better than Greycastle's. Maybe the devils will hit Wolfheart and Greycastle first. Either way, witches from both nations will be forced to take refuge in the Dawn Kingdom. If Dawn becomes peaceful and stable, those witches might never want to move to Greycastle. So in the long run, maybe in a decade, Dawn might end up with more witches. And that's something she's not too happy about. Nightingale bluntly asks her why she has a problem with everyone just staying alive. To answer that, Iris emphasizes the potential of each individual witch. Just look at Anna, Agatha, or Soraya. All of them are incredibly powerful. It was because of their contributions that Neverwinter City rose to power. Right now, Roland is around who is smart and strategic as hell. With the smart leadership paired with the Witch Union, the only real threat left to Neverwinter right now is the existence of the devils. But in the future, centuries from now, when the Witch Union is gone, there's a chance a powerful witch could rise in the Dawn Kingdom. If that happens, Greycastle could end up looking significantly weaker by comparison. Roland actually applauds her for her prediction. Still, he can't retract an order that's already been given. He understands that a ruler should prioritize long-term gains over short-term ones. But Roland doesn't want to be that kind of ruler. He clearly has a different idea of what a ruler should be, and he intends to live by it. Dusk begins to settle when Roland comes back to meet his beloved girl. Since he's exhausted from the meetings he's been holding for a while now, Anna decides to give his feet a well-deserved warm shower. She takes off his boots, puts his feet into the water, and starts heating it up, causing the guy immense satisfaction and relaxation. As he's revitalizing himself, she wants to know if those recent meetings bore any fruit, since she hasn't seen him look so relaxed since he received letters from Neverwinter City. He then reveals everything he had discussed with Iris. Anna finds it kind of amusing how Iris is being way too over-strategic and meticulous to a fault. From what Anna understands, the future holds a totally different outcome than what Iris is thinking. She's sure that he will destroy the church and win the battle of divine will, and the witches will remember that for the rest of their lives. The survivors of Tequila will worship him. He will share his knowledge with the public, and every book will carry his name. The rulers of other kingdoms will seek his protection, and they shall all show their loyalty to him. Nobody will be brave enough to challenge the legacy Roland is going to leave behind. After all, those who betray will always have sorrowful ends. Centuries later, perhaps there will only be one kingdom in this world, and its borders will expand across the fertile plains, and humanity will regain its glory. Roland likes the way Anna describes everything, though that doesn't mean he doesn't value Iris's words. After all, her perspective on the matter is rather unique. When she said those words, she transformed from a noble to a minister of a nation. Her thoughts no longer centered around the northern region. Instead, she was thinking about Greycastle as a whole. She made her decisions and formed opinions based on that. That's very rare for a person from this time. Another thing in her favor is her opinion of witches. She was able to understand the technological advancements the witches could bring. So her unique and rational perspective on matters alone makes her better than the majority. Anna wants to get an answer for a question lingering in her mind for a while now. She wants to know if he has ever considered the future. If they survive the Battle of Divine Will, what does he want to do? Well, he plans to cross the fertile plains, look at the Dawn region, and even visit Devil's Land. He wants to cross the sea and leave his footprints on the other side of the ocean, and uncover the secrets of gods and the truths of this world. Cute Anna also wants to accompany him on his adventures, and Bro is more than willing to take her along. After all, she is the only girl he likes to clap with, so why wouldn't he? Cut to Princess Tilly, watching that magic stone with utmost impatience, waiting for any response from the sleeping spell witches who went to spy on the devils and plant magic stones. Pasha assures the concerned girl that since the stone in front of them hasn't shattered yet, it likely means those witches are still safe. And if they run into devils, they will definitely crush the stones. While Tilly already knows this, she still can't help but feel worried. It seems like the poor girl has been there ogling at the stone tirelessly, and now desperately needs to catch some Z's. Pasha suggests she go get some rest. If any update comes up, she'll inform her as soon as she can. We cut to the sleeping spell witches, who have been on this venture for more than 5 days, and still haven't found the ruins. This sky blue witch helps everyone jump from one tunnel to another using her teleportation tunnels. These girls are young and naive, having the time of their lives munching down wheat biscuits, and Sky Blue just can't get enough of them. This is when Evie stops the girls from goofing around and strictly warns Sky Blue not to munch down all their food supplies just for fun. But Sky Blue doesn't seem to like Evie in the first place, especially since this woman hails from the notorious Bloodfang group, who once tried to harm Tilly. So Sky Blue ain't giving a shit to her, let alone the jerkies to eat. Ash then finally steps between the two ladies and scolds Sky Blue for pulling out buried bodies unnecessarily. If Tilly had heard her talking shit, she would have gotten mad. Still, while Sky Blue agrees not to shit talk, she still looks dismissive. Back to business, Ash is looking at the map, figuring out why they still haven't reached their destination. It is then that Evie hears something suspicious above ground. It turns out there are devils patrolling. While it's quite nerve-wracking, it also means they're on the right track. Though Lotus points out the main concern. Without seeing the city ruins, they can't set up the magic relic that is supposed to be used to spy on these devils. They do a lot of back and forth strategizing about how to reach the Tequila ruins and place their spy stone. After planning, they finally decide to execute their plan. With night about to descend, Sky Blue transports Ash above ground. Once she's floating in the air, she notices nothing, literally no trace of Tequila ruins, which makes her wonder if they walked the wrong way. If that's the case, they might need to turn around and head south. Soon enough, she's spotted by devils who are riding some weird, grotesque, fleshy creature. Ash quickly shatters the magic stone in her hands, a single meant for Sky Blue to open a portal. Since there are more devils than she can handle, she's sure retreat is the only wise decision. As she crosses through the portal and is about to hit the ground, Evie uses her magic to stop her from getting hurt. She then quickly reports the situation, stating that the devils are coming, so they need to retreat toward Misty Forest. About 3 days later, all 4 girls return to Neverwinter City with defeated looks on their faces, looking worse for wear. Tilly seems pretty disappointed to see Ash fail such a crucial mission. Given how miserably Ash messed up the directions, Tilly is genuinely wondering how they even managed to get back from Hermes to Neverwinter. Pasha, on the other hand, is just relieved that everyone came back alive. That alone is more than enough to be thankful for. With Sylvie now back in Neverwinter City, they'll finally be able to keep a proper eye on enemy numbers. It looks like Tilly is still upset with Ash, or rather, she was just worried sick about her. When they're alone, Ash hugs Tilly from behind, apologizing for making her worry. But the princess isn't about to let her off with just a hug, not after the stress Ash put her through. So she insists this brute woman should properly apologize. She even throws a mini tantrum over it, scolding Ash for making her worry so much. After a lot of back and forth, the two finally make up. We then cut to Lorgar, who is fully healed thanks to Nana's arrival in Neverwinter City. Through her blurry, hazy vision, she remembers seeing a little goddess who appeared out of nowhere and healed her. Soon after, Roland comes to visit and checks in on her well-being. Unsurprisingly, the girl is doing fine for the most part. The poor guy can't help but let his instincts take over. He starts patting her ears. Then he immediately feels guilty about laying hands on a woman without her permission. But he really couldn't help it. He had always wondered what wolf ears felt like in real life. From what he'd heard, they were supposed to be ticklish, but turns out they aren't tickling the girl at all. Lorgar then asks how long she'd been out and where Nana went because she desperately wants to thank her. Roland explains she'd been out for about 3 days, and she would have slept even longer if Nightfall hadn't retracted her symbiotic seed. Before they move on to anything else, Roland wants to thank her on behalf of Neverwinter. That acknowledgement lights her up like a kid in a candy store, like she's finally proven her worth. To be fair, Roland never said she wasn't powerful. You don't have to fight on the front lines to be part of the war. As long as you're contributing in any way, you're in the fight against the devils. That said, he's firmly against anyone fighting the devils alone. If they'd been just a little late rescuing her, or if she hadn't had Nightfall's symbiotic seed, she'd be pushing up daisies by now. Then again, if she hadn't risked her life, Neverwinter wouldn't have known about the devil army either. Still, that doesn't mean she had to jump into battle. All she had to do was retreat and report back. Roland applauds her for what she did, but he also sternly makes it clear that he won't approve of reckless decisions made for personal reasons. The poor girl looks like she's about to cry, seeing Roland go from kind and gentle to terrifyingly serious in a split second. Anyway, it's finally time to talk about the reward she deserves. It could be anything: golden royals, chaos drinks, or even a custom-made weapon just for her. Out of everything Roland mentions, the idea of a custom weapon grabs her full attention. She wonders if maybe she'll get metal talons or fangs for her wolf form. Roland hasn't figured out exactly what kind of weapon will suit her best yet, but it'll likely be a firearm, something that'll seriously boost her offense. Still, she'd rather rely on her body and her fangs than on strength that doesn't come from her. So eventually, she chooses to join the Witch Union. After all, golden royals will run out, so do chaos drinks. And she doesn't really have any skill she can monetize, except fighting on the battlefield. Joining the union is the best option. Once she's a member, she'll get a monthly supply of gold and drinks. Plus, she already promised Lightning and Maggie that she'd explore the barren lands with them. Since they're union members too, it'll be easier for her to travel with them. This is the only reward she truly wants right now. Since she previously refused his offer to join, Roland wants to make sure she's serious this time. She confirms it with no hesitation. She's ready to sign the contract thingy right away. But Roland tells her to rest for now. They'll take care of it later. As for Nana and the other witches who helped her, once she joins the union, she'll have plenty of chances to meet them again. As Roland leaves, Lorgar can't help but notice how he chose to come visit her out of all the things he could have been doing. That alone gives her just a little more reason to put her faith in him. Finally, Roland is about to hold a grand meeting with most of the big shots present. Once everyone takes their seats, he starts the meeting by making it abundantly clear that Neverwinter City will not allow devils to find shelter on the fertile plains, especially not this close to the border. Their enemies arrived earlier than expected, but Neverwinter City won't be falling behind either. The majority of Grey Castle is now under his rule, which makes Neverwinter City more than capable of dealing with them. So, he declares that taking back the Tequila Ruins from the devils is their main goal now. Literally no one objects to his full and final decision. Wendy suggests running an awareness campaign to educate the common folks about the existence of the devils. After all, if they don't disclose everything up front, those with ulterior motives might use this situation to their advantage and spread false rumors. Pasha agrees with this too. For this, Roland puts the awareness campaign's responsibility in Barov's capable hands. As for the fearmongers and troublemakers, he gives Barov full authority to deal with those kinds of guys however he sees fit. Up next, Pasha asks how they plan on dealing with the devils around the Tequila Ruins. As far as the Tequila Witches are concerned, they're willing to make any sacrifice necessary. Roland then pulls out a map and suggests setting up cannons so they can destroy the devil's red fog supply from a distance. Though, without adequate preparations, it'll be hard for his army to find footing if all the devils suddenly rush them. So the major concern they have is transportation. At the northern mines of Neverwinter City, Roland unveils his latest invention, the steam trains. He introduces this massive hunk of metal to all these backward bitches. Barov points out that while building the railway tracks, there's a chance the devils will execute ambushes on their workers, hindering their railway track progress. Roland then reveals they need 2 tracks to make sure they can constantly travel in both directions. Secondly, he doesn't plan on crossing the plains. Instead, he wants to depart from Misty Forest, get close to the Tequila Ruins, and then head east. The region is completely under Leaf's control, so they won't have to worry about hybrids. As for the devils, they just gotta fight those bastards with the cannons. Even if they somehow survive the bombing and ruin the tracks, the only optimal solution is to build them faster than the devils can destroy them. Suddenly, the blaring sound of an alarm catches everyone off guard. Apparently, it's a warning of the highest level. Since Roland is outside right now, his protection is the utmost imperative. Ash and the other witches quickly surround him. Even his sister grabs his hand, just as a safety measure. This surprises Roland quite a bit. After all, he hadn't realized she even cared about him as her brother. We then cut to the border wall. There, a red mist has started to spread, courtesy of devils making their way to the boundary wall. There are more than 5 of them. Sylvie is absolutely shocked to see these devils acting out of the blue. As far as she's concerned, they were supposed to be gathered around the divine ores within the ruins, waiting for the arrival of the Red Moon. So it doesn't make sense that these bastards are attacking so soon. The soldiers on the wall quickly prepare for retaliation, with their cannons ready to fire. Sylvie and her assistant inside the watchtower strategize how to deploy the troops given the devils' movements. Meanwhile, the devils close in on the wall, and one of them grabs his spear and throws it so hard that it literally demolishes part of the wall, knocking out a few soldiers. They then throw a few pieces of paper. And just like that, they turn around and leave. Those papers contain drawings of humans along with hybrid beasts. Later, those drawings are shown to Roland. From what he understands, this is supposed to be some sort of provocation. That's why Roland won't fall for their trap. One picture shows a human begging and kneeling, while another shows a captured witch. The other one shows burning city walls. From his understanding of this message, they want him to hand over the wolf girl and surrender. Or else, everyone will be killed. Pasha also chimes in with her 2 cents. From what she can tell, it's a trap. She assures him not to feel overwhelmed or panic, as devils often pull stunts like this. Roland wants to know if she's encountered something like this before. She reveals that the former mortal kingdom received threats like these. During the first battle of Divine Will, the devils used similar plots to turn witches and mortals against each other. That's how they managed to take over the Dawn region. During that battle, the leaders of the 2 main cities fought the devils with their armies. The only difference was that one army consisted of witches, while the other was ordinary humans only. During the chaotic battle, the leader of the mortals suddenly sided with the devils, sabotaging the retreating witches and using weapons made from stones of divine judgment. The betrayal was later dubbed the Twilight Betrayal, and was seen as a hard lesson learned. That was when humans split into 2 factions. This event was never recorded in the books. Instead, it was spread among the higher levels of the Alliance as confidential information. The devils may have despicable threats and schemes, but they learned them from mortals. Legend has it that humans came into contact with devils way before the Battle of Divine Will took place. Back then, devils were no different from beasts, but a human passed their knowledge to them. Some believe this is why some elite devils resemble humans. But the 3 chiefs thought that was ridiculous and forbade people from talking about it. That's why only the higher-ups have heard such rumors. Roland is more interested in knowing if Pasha believes those rumors. Well, she isn't sure. They still don't know if that human who met the devils was an ordinary person or a witch. The Majesty then inquires what's going to happen next, now that they aren't falling for the devil's bait. She reveals that devils will continue attacking the target city until the leader surrenders or their army arrives at the borders. In other words, if Neverwinter City doesn't make its move, the devils will definitely come back. In light of that, Roland decides to avenge the fallen soldiers by spilling the blood of their enemies. He plans to lay a trap and get those bastard devils. He wants to let them know they aren't dealing with the humans from 400 years ago. A while later, as he sits in his office, he can now be certain that the devils have reached the western borders more than once after Lorgar exposed their plans. Otherwise, they would have predicted that this city was mainly populated with ordinary humans, and wouldn't have used the same threats they used during the first battle of Divine Will. Be it in the posts in the Mountains of Despair or the Divine Punishment witches who are out patrolling, none of them has noticed anything suspicious. In fact, even Sylvie didn't notice the approaching threat until the devils arrived right outside the gate. This just shows how Neverwinter's greatest weakness is the open sky with their current technology. So, to build a machine capable of detecting enemies in the skies, Roland pays a visit to the Astrology Association. First of all, Misan, the leader of the Astrology Association, can't help but brag about the progress they've made so far, thanks to the geometry book Roland provided them. After a lot of talk about astronomy and recent developments, our boy finally reveals the main reason he's there. With the help of the geometry knowledge, he wants Misan to work with craftsmen and make a machine that can predict the movements of a projectile. For a vague idea, it's supposed to be controlled by 2 variables. One controls its horizontal position, while the other affects the vertical. Roland has a rough idea, but needs him to confirm the final numbers after some trials. Misan acknowledges the orders and promises to try his best to make this device. As Roland is about to walk away, he notices the old man wants to say something. Actually, Misan has had one question for a while. He realized that for all the books the Majesty gave him, including the geometry book, all the books are labeled as intermediate, and he wants to know why. Roland reveals that there is a subject called advanced mathematics that comes after intermediate geometry. Instead of simple geometry or calculations, it also contains advanced mathematical theories. Let's just say the beginner and intermediate books are like the tree trunk, and advanced mathematics is like the leaves that spread out. However, this subject is extremely challenging, which is why it also has another name. The title of the next book is Get Started and Give Up. Of course, that old man is already charged with so much optimism that the word give up ain't even in his dictionary. This old coot is even willing to put his life on the line for the betterment of this world, let alone failing to understand a mere book. So he insists to His Majesty that he be granted the right to learn from this book. As expected, Roland promises to give him the book, but under one condition only. He has to finish the project he has been assigned, and only then can he visit the castle to claim the book. After that short trip to the Astrology Association, Roland goes to meet his favorite girl at the factories. She's out there grinding, trying to learn and develop new blueprints for their weapons. After a bunch of hectic days, Roland finally finishes preparations, and the weapons are ready to fire. Now all they gotta do is wait for the devils to make their move. About 5 days later, a horde of devils is heading toward Neverwinter City. Pasha looks worried, seeing the devils moving earlier than expected. It should have been at least 2 weeks, maybe even a month based on her past experience. But it doesn't make sense for these bastards to show up this early, especially since the distance they have to travel takes over a day just to reach Neverwinter. The devils are trying to spread as much fear as possible. When rumors start spreading, humans will lose faith regardless of what their leaders say. That's what makes their second attack so effective. And it takes time for rumors to spread and fear to take hold in people's hearts, so devils usually wait before each attack. Alethea asks what their next step is. Roland simply wants to get rid of them. Even though there wasn't much time and the new weapons were only tested once, most of the witches have already returned. With Nightingale, Lightning, and Maggie there, at least they can take down a few of these bitches. He wants them to follow the original plan, but that doesn't mean they should overlook their own safety just to make the plan succeed. The little ones acknowledge their leader's orders and get ready to follow through. Nightingale promises to take care of the little ones. However, it seems Lightning doesn't like being called little. Both of the little girls then start their childish theatrics, so Nightingale has to drag them both out of the meeting room. Moving on, Roland hands over defense responsibility to the witches from Slumber Island. With all the chess pieces in place, the only thing left is for Roland to hear the phone call announcing their victory. With that, everyone gets ready to carry out their assigned duties. Meanwhile, Pasha questions him if he's sure about this decision. She says too many witches showing up will make the devils change their minds once they realize this isn't just a mortal city, but one full of witches. They'll plan their next strategy accordingly. Roland's aware of that already. The war between humans and devils is inevitable, so there's no point in holding back. These initial battles will serve to teach the First Army and the witches how to fight devils. You see, the First Army wasn't always this powerful. In the early days, it was just made up of ordinary hunters, miners, and farmers. But now, they're facing enemies like never before, and the more experience they gain, the more confident they become. That way, at least they won't freak out when the real divine war hits. Roland may call them elite warriors, but the truth is, they've just survived near-death experiences a bit more than others. Hearing all this, Pasha admits she's touched by his determination. This alone is enough to separate him from the rest of humankind. Hearing such a discriminatory remark about humanity, Roland reminds her that humans are known as mortals, not because they're weak, but because there are too many of them. That's precisely why they're easily underestimated. He's learned from records in his dream world about a legend where humans were underestimated, and that very thing caused the downfall of colossal dragons and ancient deities. All of them became stories of the past because of just 40 mere mortals. Pasha wonders cluelessly if such a legend really exists, to which Roland says yes. Now that technology has advanced, they don't even need 40 people. Also, letting the devils think Neverwinter City is an alliance city is just a trick. By doing this, they'll believe those strange attacks are caused by the witches, which blinds them to the truth. Neverwinter City is neither a city of the past, nor does it belong to the Alliance. It's an industrial city, a hybrid of both. We then cut to the walls of Neverwinter City, where a newly appointed soldier is seen fearing for his life. The horrific bloodshed he's seen in past battles is really messing with his mind. Then his captain arrives to give him some words of comfort. His Majesty Roland invented some new weapons, and the devils won't be able to hurt them. The soldiers are loading up these machine guns with bullets, and soon enough, an announcement comes from the scouting tower about the approaching threat. Once the soldiers take note of the devils heading their way, they confirm and lock onto the targets. That same scared soldier also grabs his gun, ready to take his shot when the time comes. The devils are also prepared, ready to throw their spears with that same godly speed. Seeing this, the scared soldier remembers his training. If the devils get within spearing range, they're free to shoot. But until that happens, they're not allowed to open fire. After all, they gotta save their bullets until the devils basically run into their own deaths. Once the enemy is within range, the soldiers begin firing, taking these bastards down left and right. Soon enough, the barrage of bullets takes one of the devils down, sparking a burst of confidence and a swell of pride in Roland's priceless weapons. Seeing this inevitable rain of bullets, the devils make a smart decision and scatter around instead of sticking together in a group. That's when the other soldiers start firing their guns too. One devil is heading straight toward that scared soldier. The devil is armed with a spear, and now it's a run-or-die situation. But instead of running, the brave soldier steals his resolve and unleashes a barrage of bullets. He manages to brutally kill the beast the devil was riding, but the devil himself hasn't taken any damage. That opening is enough for the bastard to catch the poor guy off guard, and he hurls his spear with full force. Just when it looks like it's the end for the brave soldier, a barrier forms right in front of him, saving him from that brutal hit. The one behind that shield is of course a witch from Slumber Island, here to assist the mortals in battle. The sky is literally lit up with machine guns emptying round after round, giving these bastards a real run for their money. Eventually, one of the devils blows the horn of retreat, so Sylvie decides it's time to enter the final phase of their plan. Lightning is already on it, telling Sylvie to just sit back and enjoy her beautiful performance as an awesome adventurer. With that, she takes off with Ash in her arms. Once they're high enough in the sky, she tosses Ash toward the devils, and this brute lady quickly draws her sword and slices one of those bastards in a single, clean hit. Just when the devils thought things couldn't get any uglier, Maggie appears in the sky, carrying Nightingale to deliver the final blow. The devils throw their spears at them, but Maggie quickly shifts from her giant bird form into a pigeon, causing the spears to strike nothing but empty air. Now it's Nightingale's turn to show what she's got. She pulls out her guns and takes down one of the bastards with precise shots. Then she lands right on top of the beast the devil was riding. Another one comes charging. With help from her mist abilities, Nightingale crashes her beast straight into the devils. Once the bastard loses his ride, Nightingale slices him into multiple pieces using a magic I straight up can't even explain. Honestly, this part is absolutely horrendous. I have no idea what the hell just happened. Anyway, it looks like their plan has been a success, with all the devils down. Nightingale makes sure to celebrate her little victory over Ash by killing 2 targets. A while later, Lightning and the others are out looking for the 2 beasts that ran off after the devils died. Sylvie is the one giving them precise directions, and once they get the pinpoint location, Lightning puts on her glasses and gets ready to fly. Roland also gets the good news about the successful subjugation of the monsters. The mad devils have all been exterminated. They've even confiscated some canisters filled with red mist, and Sister Leaf managed to capture a mad devil who fell into the misty forest. Roland is satisfied with the report and hangs up the phone on a good note. This battle was critical for boosting morale, and it looks like it's been a success so far. Now the soldiers know the devils aren't invincible. When it comes to actual fights, they're no better than the Divine Punishment Army of the Church. And now, they even have a hostage. That'll make future announcements way easier. All Roland needs to do now is show the public what these devils actually look like. That way, their prejudice toward witches will naturally disappear. Later, Roland meets with Pasha, who's looking forward to crafting new sigils by herself, assuming they've really captured a living devil. Meanwhile, Roland reflects on the current state of his strength. This battle showed him that the Mark I machine gun was barely strong enough for aerial combat. What really hurt the enemy was the volley fire. And that just makes his mood worse when he remembers he still doesn't have an air force to properly deal with flying beasts. A few minutes later, he orders Barov to hold a celebration in the central square tonight. It has to look like a victorious celebration, lively and extravagant, as this is all part of the publicity push. We then cut to the central square, where the hustle and bustle has already begun. The scene shifts to a boy, someone you guys probably don't even remember. He's the kid who used to live in Longsong Fortress with Pepper. But one day, Pepper was taken to Border Town, while he and his friends worked under rats just to survive. Eventually, thanks to Roland's new policies, the rats were purged, and these kids came to Border Town looking for work. Now this boy has finally gotten his ID card, making him an official citizen of the city. Along with the ID card, there's also a notice about joining the rail construction project in the Misty Forest. He and his friends argue a lot about the job, thinking it might be dangerous as they could end up facing devils during the railway construction. But the blonde kid stays optimistic, saying they'll brave through it all. The scene shifts to one of the biggest families in the Dawn, the Quinns, starting with Andrea's father. Every day, nobles come by trying to persuade him to side with Roland Wimbledon. But this pussy is too scared to betray Appin Moya, even though his son keeps pushing him to think differently. Still, the father sticks to his guns, wanting to stay loyal to Appin Moya. Sure, Appin might have lost ruling power, but he's still got plenty of soldiers under his command. If he's betrayed, he won't forgive. It could mean assassination. But everything seems about to change when Andrea shows up to see her father. The man's completely bewildered to see his daughter after all these years. His mind drifts down memory lane. How his little girl had to fake her death and leave the Kingdom of Dawn just because she was a witch. Seeing Andrea fully grown, the old man's eyes well up. Even her brother is shocked out of his mind as he thought she was dead for sure. The butler shares the same bewildered look. The reason the old man is so shocked is because he wanted to keep her death a secret. He didn't even tell his wife about Andrea's witch awakening. To cover it up even more, he killed his own servant who knew about Andrea's condition. He even staged that cliff incident to hide everything. Before starting his conversation with his long-lost daughter, he orders his son to leave, reluctant at first, but he eventually goes. Then the old man tells the butler to keep Andrea's arrival a secret. Close all the gates to the castle and blow out all the lights in the hall. And he mustn't be disturbed at all costs. The butler acknowledges but wants to confirm what to do with the young Mrs. Friends. The old man tells him to bring them to the banquet hall and serve them something to eat. Once father and daughter are alone, the old man starts with skepticism about her identity. To prove she's really his daughter, Andrea uses her magic and produces the bow she always uses. It doesn't take long for the old man to remember. That's the same bow he had a craftsman build solely for Andrea. Now convinced, he wants to know why she came back. After all, he sent her far away just so she can live comfortable life. Andrea expresses her disdain for his selfish plan to send her away. His plan never made her feel protected, Instead, she felt abandoned. After all, there's no safe place for witches. If she hadn't met other witches, she'd be dead long ago. But she's willing to let go of the past, and she's not here for what he did back then. He's probably curious how she managed to get into the mansion so casually. After all, the guards wouldn't just trust her words that easily. Also, when she saw the butler, she stopped outside the door for a while. And as for the guy who called him father, she doesn't remember having a younger brother. He reveals he's a brother from another mother. Her mother passed away from an illness a year after she left. Finally, Andrea drops the atomic bomb she came to deliver. As head of the Quinn family, Roland Wimbledon wants her father to step forward and take the throne instead of hiding behind the scenes. Of course, this mustache bastard is bewildered to hear it, so Andrea repeats herself to make sure he heard it loud and clear. The bastard staggers backward, hit hard by that brutal bombshell. Andrea, meanwhile, continues to reveal that Roland doesn't want to see App and Moya on the throne anymore. And he definitely doesn't want to watch the neighboring nations suffer from endless war. In order to stabilize the situation in Dawn, it's imperative to elect a new king as soon as possible. Since Roland doesn't know many people from Dawn, he chose her to be the next king. But since she refused, now he wants her father to take the role instead. The old man finds it rather suspicious and questions why Roland isn't here himself. To which Andrea reveals that if the nobles of Dawn want to battle him head-on, with all the soldiers they have, he's open to the idea. Put simply, His Majesty has more urgent enemies to deal with at the moment. He doesn't have the time to waste a few years just to make Dawn part of Grey Castle. After all, he can easily strip any noble of their authority, but rebuilding an entire kingdom from scratch is way more complicated and time-consuming. As for the more urgent enemies she's talking about, it's the devils he's after. She then further explains to her terrified father all about the divine war that's coming, and how the church was involved in it. The old man is in shambles, realizing that the current situation in Dawn is nothing more than a squabble in the grand scheme of things. Even he understands that humans have already lost twice, and if they lose again, only hell awaits them. Even with the massive risks and threats, Roland Wimbledon is still willing to shoulder the responsibility of fighting this war of divine will against such powerful enemies. That just goes to show Roland's courage and willpower are on a whole other level. The old man grows curious as to why Roland is putting his life on the line, and what he stands to gain from all this. Andrea shakes her head. Even she doesn't understand what Roland is thinking. Rather than doing this for humanity, it feels like he's doing this for himself. It's almost like he's constantly looking for a new challenge, and humanity just so happens to benefit from it. The old man is willing to contribute to the cause and asks what he's supposed to do to help. Andrea insists him to just stabilize the Kingdom of Dawn and provide support to Grey Castle when needed. The Quinn family will also have to pay Roland in ores and supplies. The old man is actually glad Roland's asking for something in return. Otherwise, he would have assumed His Majesty had some kind of ulterior motive for helping the Quinn family. Then again, not like he could do anything about Roland Wimbledon's strength, regardless of motive. It's basically like opportunity just landed in his lap without him lifting a finger, so he sees no reason to reject it. He expresses his willingness to support Roland Wimbledon's efforts in whatever way is necessary. With that settled, Andrea moves forward with Roland's proposed plan. He wants to completely destroy App and Moya in front of everyone. He wants the entire noble class to witness the end of the Appen family's rule, and for all nobles to bow to the new ruler. The old man questions as to how is that even going to be possible. Andrea simply says he'll get his answer soon enough. The only thing the Quinn family has to do is rebel against App and Moya and make a huge scene. Cut to Otto, who's rotting away in a prison cell. We're skipping all the fluff here. He gets a secret letter from Fox, who craftily slipped a handkerchief carrying a hidden message. He's coming to save him. The next scene takes us to App and Moya, who's pretty pissed after hearing that the Prime Minister has rebelled. He never expected the Quinn family to be a problem. He had assumed the three elderly ministers would never betray him and would just keep a low profile, minding their own business. After all, the capital's still under his control. If they try to anger him, they're basically signing their own death warrants. Still, he can't figure out where the Quinn family's confidence is coming from. They don't have followers, they don't have soldiers. The only thing they've got is maybe a dozen guards. Honestly, it's laughable. Then the butler reveals something new. The Earl has contacted nobles from other territories. However, he didn't meet them personally, he sent out invitations. He openly invited all nobles to his estate, trying to convince them to pledge their loyalty to the Quinn family. Of course, this revelation only annoys Appen further, so he orders Sir Barkov to lead the patrol team and bring him the head of Horford Quinn. For now, the rest of the Quinn family is to be thrown into prison. If anyone gets in the way, he gives open orders to kill them. While he may have given these orders, it's clear the guy is still traumatized from witnessing the nuking in the Holy City. He literally saw his soldiers die like dogs, without even putting up a fight. He starts spiraling, ranting that he surrenders, cursing Roland for stripping him of everything. If not for that, he claims, he could have been a great ruler. Now he just slumps onto his throne, waiting for Quinn to arrive, just so he can show him what happens when you anger a king. Well, the old man shows up with some bad news. Sir Barkov is pushing up daisies. The Mad King loses it and lashes out at his butler because he can't freaking believe that a handful of Quinn soldiers managed to beat 200 of his own men. To which the butler calmly drops the bomb. They weren't up against common soldiers. The opponent's power and speed were literally ungodly. Of course, this description only makes sense if the opponents they are facing are witches. And this realization only freaks Moya even more. He then summons his senior knight Reese and orders him to gather all the mercenaries in the City of Dawn as he wants them to flatten the Quinn residents with their fire arrows and bows. He doesn't care if they're witches, be it monsters or humans. He wants everything reduced to dust. His knight reminds him that Earl Quinn resides in the inner zone of the city. If a fire breaks out there, the entire city could suffer the consequences. But this Mad King is dead set. If this knight fails to carry out the orders, then he is of no use to the king. He is certain that even the divine punishment warriors will be helpless in the face of such a massive army. And everyone who sided with the church or the witches must die. Later that night, Reese takes his fellow soldiers and sneaks into the inner zone of the city to carry out the Mad King's command. But there, in the distance, he spots a few figures. As they draw closer, they turn out to be clowns. Naturally, Reese asserts his authority over these lowly circus performers who dare to block the royal army's path. But we all know these shady clowns aren't your average jokers. They suddenly lunge at the soldiers, aiming to take them down. The next morning, a large crowd gathers in the capital square of the Kingdom of Dawn. They're currently discussing the famine, blaming App and Moya for allegedly reducing the number of farmlands outside the city. However, Earl Quinn has promised prosperity to those who support him, and many are already considering switching sides. Cut to App and Moya, who is absolutely losing it over the accusations being hurled at him. He has no idea when or if he ever did anything to the fields. He believes Roland Wimbledon should be held accountable for the abandoned villages. According to him, it was Roland's witches who murdered the innocent farmers. The butler tries to calm his fuming king. Right now, his focus should be on stopping Earl Quinn's advance. Only then can they suppress the rebellion. Appin then asks about the number of people still loyal to him. Counting the knights, guards, and mercenaries, the soldier reveals the total to be around 1,500, but if they include servants, it could easily be over 2,000. Appin Moya then tells his soldier to take all the gold inside the vaults and announce among the servants that for every monster they kill, they will be rewarded with 100 golden royals. If someone manages to stop the other party from rebelling, they'll be granted a title and some land. And if they already have a title, they can expect a promotion. He then asks his butler whether the head of the Quinn family received any support from other nobles. To that, the guy reveals there's a rumor floating around that the auction house known as Black Money is in touch with the Earl. Of course, this only pisses Moya off even more. The butler goes on to reveal that the Torcat family is now openly supporting the Quinns. Though before the king goes into a complete frenzy, the butler quickly reassures him that the Luoxi family has refused Quinn's invitation several times. Appin Moya can't help but gnaw at his nails, thinking how there were 3 big families his father used to pride himself on, and now every one of them is turning against him. He tells his butler to issue a threat to the Luoxi family. If they don't show loyalty, they're as good as dead. Betrayal and treachery will not be tolerated. A while later, Appin receives a message from Earl Luoxi. The contents are surprisingly reassuring. It says the Luoxi family has cut all ties with the other 2 families and are willing to stay loyal to Appin Moya. Bro's glad that slowly but surely, the 3 major families will be under his thumb again. The next day, we see the representatives of all 3 families heading toward the king's castle, and it looks like things are about to get real spicy. We then cut to Andrea up on one of the watchtowers. She spots a fiery arrow blazing through the sky, a clear signal that the battle has begun. She grabs her sniper rifle and locks onto the soldier in charge of the catapult. With bullets fused with her magic, there's no way she's gonna miss. The moment the bullet leaves the nozzle, it finds its target. It's a clean hit and 1 down. Andrea reloads and takes out another soldier. Before the enemy can figure out where the hell this ambush is coming from, they're already dropping like flies. Soon enough, one side of the wall is wiped out. When the soldiers realize divine punishment witches are scaling the walls below, they start firing flaming arrows. But those are useless. Witches march right up to the castle wall, grappling hooks in hand. In no time, they scale the walls and are ready to obliterate these fools. All it takes is one swing of their blades to slice down multiple soldiers at once. Once the way's clear, they charge straight toward the castle. Meanwhile, Appin watches the chaos unfold from the window, absolutely losing it when he realizes Luoxi betrayed him. Now he's finally ready to kill Otto for the betrayal of Otto's father. Looks like not just Luoxi, but every noble who swore loyalty has now turned their back on this mad king. Furious beyond reason, he orders his knights to execute Otto immediately and bring back only his head. As the soldiers head off to carry out the order, he sits quietly on his throne, broken, and defeated. He knows that this is the end. Soon enough, the Divine Punishment Witches, along with representatives from the 3 major families, barge into the chamber. They lay it all out for this trash king. His kingdom is in shambles. Otto has been freed from the prison as well. If it weren't for Roland's plan to spread rumors about what a terrible king Appin Moya really is, Appin would have lost his head long ago. Appin tries to coax them, warning they're making a deal with the literal devil. Not only have the 3 families broken the sacred vows their ancestors made, but they're also handing the kingdom over to a devil. He points a finger at the head of the Quinn family, questioning if he's really capable of taking the throne. He yaps a lot of nonsense, but none of it matters once Andrea finally steps in to answer every question Moya has. She reveals that Roland wants Appin Moya stripped of his kingly title to protect the witches and Otto. Of course, this trash king is stunned, seeing Andrea Quinn standing right in front of him. He can't even process this madness. He doesn't bother asking how she's alive or any of that crap. He just gets straight to the point, asking why she's siding with Roland. She keeps it simple. She's a witch, and Roland has been trying to protect her. Appin's eyes widen in disbelief. Andrea's father then reminds this half-witted ruler that a kingdom can't be run on sheer arrogance. The witches must be treated like normal citizens and enjoy the same rights. They will be allowed to walk the streets freely, take on various occupations, inherit titles from their families. They could even govern the kingdom. Well, we already know Appin has gone mad, but now it's official. He's abnormal. So let's skip over his childish tantrum as he leaves the king's chamber, disappointment written all over his face. A while later, Otto thanks Andrea for saving his life. The woman brushes off the flattery. After all, they're childhood friends, so no need for formalities. Oro almost chokes the poor guy when he reminds them both about the long-lasting friendship they share and how Andrea is the glue of their group. He suggests hanging out at their old spot. Andrea isn't even sure if the Silver Antler Tavern is still in business. Oro informs her that the Luoxi family now owns it, so it's still running. With their next meeting scheduled, Oro decides to leave them some much-needed time alone. Andrea even sends her escort away just to have absolute alone time with Otto. But before they start catching up, Andrea heads out to the courtyard. As she walks, her body trembles and she can barely stand. Otto, worried by her declining health, asks about it. She assures him it's just fatigue from overexertion, nothing serious. Now that it's just the 2 of them, she asks why he wants to talk alone. Otto reminds her of the encounter they once had in the border town. He recalls how he told her Oro would leave flowers at her grave every year. And he has done the same, literally every year, because he misses her and can't forget her. What he's about to say next might embarrass her, but he has to say it out loud. He wants her to stay by his side forever. Well, we all know her answer. After all, she already has someone she wants to spend her time with, so she won't stay in Glow City any longer than she already has. Though she might have accepted his request if he had proposed a year earlier. For a moment, Otto thinks maybe it's Majesty Roland she likes, but it turns out the person she's talking about is Nightingale. Though she makes it clear she doesn't share that kind of relationship with Nightingale, she further reminds him witches are incapable of bearing children, so they can't keep the family line running. Besides, she doesn't want to restrict herself to the rules of nobles. It has been 10 years since she left Glow City, so she's no longer the same person she was. With those final words, she departs, leaving Otto behind. What a poor guy. He worked so hard to get that pussy, but all he gets in return is shit. Andrea then visits her father before leaving the city. Her father reminds her Otto will be very upset by her departure. Well, she has good reason to leave as soon as possible. After all, someone is waiting for her, and it's been far too long since she's been away from Neverwinter City. Not to mention, this kingdom is in the middle of a power shift. They can't afford to waste time on leisure and feasts. Moving on, the old man inquires what Neverwinter has in mind. To that, she reveals that she doesn't know much about politics. But in Neverwinter, instead of putting nobles in charge, they hire citizens who've passed exams. If her father wants the details, he should ask Fox. If she desperately had to advise her father, she would suggest he avoid making the same mistakes as Appin. Well, the old coot has already witnessed the kind of terrifying power Roland holds, so it would be foolish of him to go against Grey Castle now. Or perhaps worse than foolish. Andrea then points out that it's not just about power. The upcoming Battle of Divine Will is the final battle that's going to decide the fate of humankind. So internal conflicts will only accelerate their doom. With that glimpse of the future, she's sure her father already understands that the top priority should be surviving this divine war. Hence, he should maintain order in Dawn and stand with Grey Castle. They need to work together if they want to survive the Battle of Divine Will. That's the only advice she can give him. With that, she proceeds to leave. Before she walks out, the old man musters up the courage to apologize for the decision he made for her back then, against her will. And he's really sorry for that. We then cut to Appin Moya, inside one of the ships, cursing his damn luck and reflecting on his past. He's plotting some dumb shit against Roland while trying to escape somewhere safe on this ship. Suddenly he hears a commotion above. When he gets there, he finds no one. It's eerily silent. That's when he's confronted by the divine soldier witches, who slay him on the spot because this guy yaps way too much unnecessarily. With the threat neutralized, they decide to sink the ship too, just to make it look like an accident. Do you guys remember this old man? If not, he's the same guy we saw meeting Pasha and the other witches for the first time. He follows the witches' orders in exchange for an elixir that grants him more years to live. He'll be in charge of getting rid of this ship. He's got these guards who can't hear, can't talk, can't listen. They only respond to gestures, and he's got 50 of them. With that, the witches hand over the task of disposing of the ship to the old man. They further suggest he keep an eye on the Quinn family, especially since Appin had ties with the auction house, known as Black Money, and had planted spies in the new government. As for the reward, the guy gets 2 drinks as usual, 6 more bottles, and his body will finally catfish the basic requirements for his transformation. He's told to do his job diligently. Once this is all over, the witch promises he'll be able to join them soon enough. I don't know what their deal is with these drugs, but let's hope we find out soon. We then cut to Roland, who's glad that everything went smoothly. With the way things are going, he's sure his alliance with Dawn is going to flourish, all thanks to Andrea. He's also pretty happy that the phone lines are gradually being set up. In the past month, Anna has set up phones in the witches' offices, City Hall, the military camps, and even the third border city. Longsong Fortress is on the list now too. The only thing left is setting up a private line that goes straight into Anna's room. Well, he's kinda joking. He doesn't want to use something that important just to get his daily dose of Anna's breathing ASMR. He then starts reviewing a booklet listing the new witches who've been the most problematic. According to Wendy's report, these 2 girls refuse to cooperate, and they've always had a massive dislike boner for literally everything going about with the Witch Association. It was Skrull who managed to calm things down, but the situation still hasn't totally improved. So, it's highly unlikely these 2 are going to accept the invitation. The redhead lady uses source tracing, while the purple-haired witch has the ability of demonification. Source tracing is an extremely useful ability that points them toward natural resources, and it's even more useful than Sylvie's Eyes of Truth. For example, they can now easily locate a gold vein using just a single nugget. As for demonification, it can turn magic into a loop. By reducing power consumption, it grants dead creatures a new life. Though it's a pity Roland barely knows anything about this magic, so there's no way to verify how strong it really is. Still, based on what he does know, it's got great potential. If he's being honest, the lack of cooperation isn't a huge problem. He's figured things out before. He'll find a way again. Roland has a strict policy: never force anyone to do anything. This time, he's got to think of something more appealing to make them join. After all, motivational speeches and golden royals alone aren't enough, especially since the Sleeping Island witches already help human captains for their own bread and butter. Then, out of the blue, he asks Nightingale if she's ever felt underpaid. He's only asking because he wants to know if the other witches feel like they're not being paid enough for all this. Nightingale quickly gestures that none of the witches feel that way. An average person earns just 1 golden royal every 6 months, so getting a golden royal every month is actually a crazy good deal. Besides, witches barely have any expenses. They don't struggle to feed or clothe themselves, everything's provided. Living like this is actually what they used to dream of. Roland's still not fully convinced though, so she tells him to go ask Wendy if he doesn't believe her. Soon enough, Wendy arrives at the office. Once asked, she goes absolutely nuts, saying she's never thought they're being underpaid. Hell, they'd even work wholeheartedly without pay if needed. She once said this place was their new holy mountain, and the other sisters feel the same. If the city hall is ever short on money, she's even willing to donate her own golden royals. Well, Roland was just asking for feedback. He then poses another question, asking if there's anything else they'd like. Wendy thinks for a moment before saying that if she had to ask, maybe she'd like 1 more bottle of chaos drink each month. Roland wonders if Nightingale has the same request. Well, our big hooter lady doesn't hold back. She boldly asks for 2 extra bottles, if possible. We then cut to Hunter Iron Axe, who has returned to Neverwinter City along with Sister Echo. Once inside Roland's office, Sister Echo proudly reveals that the Wild Flame clan has fulfilled their promise. The first group of immigrants has arrived at the port of Clearwater. The smaller clans are starting to follow the big clans now, and they're all willing to pledge loyalty to the great chief Roland Wimbledon. After meeting with various patricians, she estimates that the port of Clearwater will welcome up to 30,000 migrants by the end of the year. She then sings her song and summons a mirage of Spear Passy. She looks worried sick, realizing she's got to take care of 30,000 people all at once. She's losing her mind from all the work lately. While the City Hall folks have been a huge help, she still needs about 300 helpers to settle all the migrants. If this workload keeps piling on her, she might just run away from her duties and become an ordinary witch in Neverwinter City. Seeing how she just summoned Spear Passy's mirage, Roland can't help but internally commend her for it. Back to business, he assures Spear Passy that he'll allocate more officials from his next batch to help her out. Sister Echo then thanks Roland for writing those songs for her. She says if it weren't for those, she wouldn't have achieved what she has now. Roland can tell managing the South and keeping relations with the clans isn't as easy as the reports make it sound, but she's been shouldering it all alone. He promises to get someone to copy down the new signs and deliver them to her room. She's glad to hear this and promptly leaves now that she's finished reporting everything. Roland then turns to Hunter Ironaxe and gives him props for a job well done. The brave hunter feels proud to work under such a diligent king, as it brings him joy to work hard. Roland asks about the nobles who fled to the Seawind region. The news isn't good. Ironaxe wanted to burn those bastards alive, but they were one step ahead. By the time he rushed to the Seawind region from Golden Wheat, the place was already a wasteland. Multiple granaries were in flames. It's unsettling that those nobles chose to destroy the city rather than hand it over peacefully to Roland. This is likely revenge from followers of the previous king. If the eastern troops hadn't been ready, and if he hadn't had dozens of ships carrying supplies, his armies might have had to retreat. Otherwise, the starving civilians would have robbed the First Army for food. If the First Army had started firing, chaos would have broken out from that point onward. Roland asks where those nobles ran off to. Ironaxe reveals those cowards fled to the fjord, while a few ran to the other three kingdoms. It's a pity that he didn't have access to ships back then, otherwise he wouldn't have let them escape. Roland assures Ironaxe not to sweat it. As long as those fools are arrogant enough to use their surnames, they will eventually be found one day. Those who ran to Dawn are already doomed, and he's not worried about the rest. Not that they can do much anyway. Now, the next question Roland asks with a serious look on his face. He wants to know if the idea of burning the nobles alive after tricking them into the dungeon was Ironaxe's. Ironaxe hesitates but reveals it was Iris's idea. Though he carried it out, he's ready to take full responsibility. The only problem His Majesty has with this plan is the fact that there was no mention of it in the war reports. Anyway, he brushes off the concerns and gives Ironaxe the props he deserves for the job well done. City Hall will allocate rewards based on his achievements, so for now, he can rest and take care of himself. Ironaxe is surprised he's not getting punished for it. Roland reminds him he didn't break any rules. His original order was to deal with the traitors in the east and take over the cities, using whatever methods they saw fit. Not to mention, Iris is a member of the advisory board, so it's normal for her to have opinions on the battle. That doesn't mean they're innocent, especially Iris. But since the following matters have nothing to do with Ironaxe, he is allowed to leave and have some rest. He then summons Iris to the castle. A while later, the woman responsible for the burning method arrives. She doesn't waste a second before taking full responsibility and is ready to accept any punishment necessary. Looks like once again, Roland is impressed with her sharpness. She's already figured out why she was summoned even though he didn't say a word. He's glad he's talking to a smart woman. Otherwise, he'd be losing brain cells by the second. She has the grace and demeanor of a proper obedient servant. Now that she's taking full responsibility for her blunder, he wants to ask why she even feels like she did something wrong. To that, she explains she met with the commander of the First Army in private, and without notifying Roland, she planned the arsenal where she burned the nobles. Well, Roland says that isn't the actual offense. The real offense is that she broke the rules of the advisory board. According to the rules, any kind of battle plan has to be written down and handed over to him for approval. So now they're doing that whole political back and forth, trying to look clever and cool while slinging loaded words at each other. Roland points out how she even used Ironaxe as her scapegoat, basically pinning the blame on him. Now he's explaining why her actions could have caused long-term problems, even if her intentions were for the betterment of Greycastle. Just imagine if she had died because of her decisions. While Roland sat on his throne clapping his hands in delight after a successful mission, the other government officials would have started to lose trust once they heard about her death. In other words, it's the ruler who always has to face the consequences of others' bad decisions. That's exactly why he needs to go through every plan the advisory board makes, even if he's not an expert on the topic. Only then will the burden of failure fall on his shoulders, and his subordinates can do their jobs without constantly worrying about the fallout. Of course, the poor girl looks super down and dejected. As punishment, Roland decides to count her contribution to the mission as 0. That means no promotions, no rewards. And with that, he wraps things up and buries the matter. She excuses herself and leaves. A while later, she's seen in a bit of a foul mood, having lunch with her brother. Naturally, she's venting her frustration on him. The next day arrives, and we see a grand banquet set up for all the witches of Sleeping Island. Tilly is right up on the stage, talking about their current workflow. With the income generated by the witches, Sleeping Island will get 30% of it. That money will go toward improving everyone's quality of life, expanding the sleeping spell, and covering future needs. Now, it might sound like her brother is scamming her by taking such a big chunk of the revenue, especially compared to Sleeping Island, where all the fees paid by fjord merchants went directly to the witches. But she feels like it's a fair trade, considering Roland is providing a better working environment. For instance, fjord merchants used to sell overpriced food and essential supplies to the witches. They had to endure those unfair losses, but here, that won't be the case. Plus, the 30% offered by Roland is already more than what they would have earned back on Sleeping Island. Her new job mainly involves using magic, and it doesn't require them to venture into the unknown or risk their lives. So, all things considered, the deal with Roland is fair. On top of that, Tilly has decided to start giving monthly wages to each witch of Sleeping Island. Before this, the witches were barely getting by since arriving in Neverwinter. They had food and clothes, but no actual money to spend on anything personal. But that changes today. She personally hands out this month's paychecks to every witch present and tells them to open their envelopes. Inside, each one finds a piece of paper with the number 10 on it. None of them have any idea what the paper is for or what the golden emblem on it means. Tilly clears things up by revealing that the paper is actually a currency note. For now, it's only being distributed to the witches exclusively. Basically, it's like a golden royal, but in paper form. And this paper currency can buy you all kinds of stuff in Neverwinter that you can't get with regular golden royals. For example, the $10 note they're all holding is enough to buy a whole bottle of Chaos drink or 5 servings of strawberry ice cream. Of course, a lot of witches start drooling at the idea of all that delicious ice cream. Tilly goes on to explain that they can buy more than just food and supplies. Anything produced in Neverwinter will be available in shops within the castle zone. In simple terms, these notes will serve as a salary if you decide to officially join Grey Castle. The amount of money you get depends on how long you've worked. Tilly also makes it clear that no one has to work. They can still live comfortably without taking up a job. The final choice is up to the witches, whether they want to work alongside Grey Castle or not. She emphasizes how important it is to live in Grey Castle. Since the beginning, every witch has dreamed of living among mortals like normal people, and this is their chance to prove their worth. One witch flashes back to a moment when she helped some mortals, and the only thing she got in return was their praise and acceptance. That memory puts a smile on her face, because Neverwinter feels like the place they'd always hoped for. Tilly reminds everyone that their true enemy is the devils. Obviously, every witch there knows how serious the devil threat is, and how the witches from 400 years ago got their asses handed to them by those same monsters. So, by working with Grey Castle and doing their part, they're not just earning money, they're contributing to the salvation of humankind as a whole. That's a kind of glory. With it, they can prove to the world that witches are irreplaceable. And with that, Tilly invites any witch who's willing to fight for humanity's future to raise their hand. A while later, Tilly shows Wendy the results of her recruitment drive. Out of 86 jobs, the Slumber Island witches have agreed to take 69. The rest who didn't pick any jobs are just kind of reluctant, but Tilly's sure they'll follow once they see the others thriving with this opportunity. With more time, she's confident more witches will be willing to join Neverwinter. Wendy's glad to see the report. Well, actually, she's overjoyed. This is way more than Roland expected. He'd predicted around 30, which just shows how badly he underestimated the Slumber Island witches. Wendy credits the success to Tilly. If it wasn't for her speech, they wouldn't have gotten such good results. Tilly, though, brushes off the praise. It's just her role to prepare for the divine battle ahead. She has to play her part if she wants to see more miracles unfold. Before winter hits, it's only smart for everyone to huddle together, though it'd be great if everyone thought the same way. For the witches from the east, the chances of contributing in Neverwinter City are next to none. Wendy wonders if Azima hated being sent anywhere other than her hometown. Why did she even go to Slumber Island in the first place? Tilly explains it wasn't always like this. Azima and the other eastern witches knew about Bloodfang long before they joined Slumber Island. Bloodfang had helped them multiple times, fighting off the church's troops. That's why Azima swore loyalty to Heidi Morgan. That was fine, but as Bloodfang's relationship with Sleeping Spell soured, Azima's view of Sleeping Spell twisted a bit. Plus, Tilly took down Heidi and her crew without telling anyone, which shocked Azima. She wasn't happy about that. That's exactly why Tilly never tried to coerce Azima when she wanted to quit Slumber Island. If Sister Scroll hadn't spoken up back then, they would have left Neverwinter long ago. Wendy reassures the troubled girl it's not her fault. After all, Heidi Morgan got what she deserved. She deceived the Wolfheart witches. Still, Tilly believes that doesn't change the fact she helped Azima when she was lost. If it were her, she'd hold grudges too. After all, they weren't evil at heart. Looks like Wendy has a plan to persuade them to stay in Neverwinter, though they might leave Sleeping Spell because of it. Tilly has no objections if it benefits Roland greatly. We then cut to Azima and her fellow witches, who look pretty troubled after rejecting job offers from Neverwinter's leader. A few witches are starting to realize Roland isn't just any ordinary guy. Since he's king of Grey Castle, even if they all return east, they'd still be under his territory. Not to mention, none of these witches are fighters, meaning they can't defend themselves head-on. And if they're talking about Ash, they're dead for sure. Azima dismissively shuts everyone down. She's sure Roland Wimbledon would never resort to violence. That would ruin the image he's worked so hard to build. Then there's a knock on the door. Wendy arrives to talk to Azima. This sharp-tongued lady makes it clear she won't tolerate any extra yapping. If Wendy's here for recruitment, she better save her breath because Azima isn't changing her mind. Azima's so ill-tongued that even her friends feel awkward and sad for Wendy. She keeps trash-talking until Wendy finally decides to speak. Rather than arguing, Wendy shares some good news. City Hall just got an update. Refugees from the east are expected to arrive in Neverwinter in a week, up to 12,000 people. Azima might find her relatives among them. The news hits Azima like a tidal wave out of nowhere. She wonders if Wendy's serious. Wendy says the shipping department did everything they could to get them here. Every other ship on the Redwater River is heading east, all filled with food and winter supplies. All the witches with loved ones in the east start asking if people from their towns will be coming back on those ships, since many towns hold their family. One little witch even expresses disdain toward her family. She'd rather her father never come back since they chased her away before. Another witch assures her that her father only abandoned her because he was misled by the church. Now that everyone knows the truth about the church, he might regret his decision. Wendy adds that with 12,000 people coming, they hail from cities and towns between Golden Wheat and Seawindshire, so they're bound to see familiar faces. Once Scroll finishes the paperwork, she'll pick out anyone related to her. Even if they're not here this time, don't worry. Immigration has just begun, so more people will keep coming to Neverwinter. As long as they stay in Neverwinter City, they're bound to see their loved ones one day. Even if they don't want to see them, that's totally fine. It's still better than knowing nothing. At least they can give their loved ones a chance to make up for abandoning them just because they were witches. Azima isn't convinced they're actually moving everyone from the east to Neverwinter. Wendy says it's not just the east. They plan to relocate people from the north, south, and central areas as well. Still, Azima can't understand why Roland Wimbledon would go to such extreme lengths to rescue these people. Wendy explains how a bigger population means a more prosperous city and how urbanization works. I won't narrate all that since we've all heard this stuff a million times. Azima remains stubborn about leaving Sleeping Spell, ready to wander the eastern wilderness like a vagabond rather than bow to Tilly's authority. She's not interested in working for the Witch Union nor relying on Grey Castle's resources. That's when Nightingale suddenly appears out of the mist, sharp-tongued and furious. She blasts the group of witches, accusing them of being arrogant and ungrateful. Despite surviving off Sleeping Spell's support and relying heavily on the Sleeping Spell incantation to scrape by, they still have the audacity to sneer at the Witch Union's offer. Azima fires back, claiming Nightingale knows nothing about the relationship between Bloodfang and Sleeping Island. But Nightingale cuts her off, asking a brutal question. If she is so independent, why isn't she working already? She breaks it down coldly. Leaving Neverwinter means spending at least 20 silver royals per witch just for travel and initial food costs. Once they arrive somewhere else, if they find anywhere livable, they'll still burn through 20 bronze royals a day, assuming they can even find supplies. Most villages are abandoned, and rampant inflation has made life outside Grey Castle harsh. That's why most refugees chose to stay. So unless they're carrying sacks of gold, this whole talk of independence is just hot air. If Nightingale were in Azima's shoes, she'd already be working, earning a living, planning with her group, and regaining real independence instead of leeching for weeks with no contribution. She accuses Azima of being a coward of siding with Bloodfang during the church's oppression simply because it was easier, not because it was right. Her words are so ruthless that Wendy has to intervene, stopping Nightingale before she completely breaks Azima down. Nightingale vanishes once again into the mist, leaving behind tension and silence. That night, Wendy apologizes on Nightingale's behalf. She assures Azima that no one wants to harm them, but if they really leave, their lives will be harder. Wendy encourages them to consider the reality rather than prideful delusions. Alone with her thoughts, Azima is forced to confront a bitter truth. Ever since joining Bloodfang, she's relied on violence and shortcuts. She stopped trying to earn an honest living. Independence was replaced by dependency. Azima then suddenly asks Wendy about the pay difference between Sleeping Spell and the Witch Union. Wendy explains that members of the Witch Union get 1 golden royal a month, plus accommodation, food, and freedom to spend their earnings as they wish. But even if Azima wants to join now, it's not immediate. Roland doesn't want any conflict between Sleeping Spell and the Union. Azima, frustrated and fired up, declares she'll prove them all wrong. She's no pampered noble. She's dug through trash and sewers just to survive. She doesn't need Grey Castle or anyone else to feed her. If they doubt her, she'll prove her strength by surviving on her own terms. Wendy tries to reason with her, but Azima's friend puts a stop to the discussion. She admits that Nightingale's words did get to her. She's been bottling up dissatisfaction ever since Bloodfang fell, but now she's ready to make a decision. Azima leaves Sleeping Spell, and surprisingly, the rest of her group follows her example. They choose to stand up, not in rebellion, but to earn on their own and live independently. Wendy decides to report this development to Roland. Before leaving, she also makes sure to remind them about the perks they will be granted once they join, making life easier and more flexible. As she walks alone toward her dorm that night, Nightingale appears again, smug and satisfied. Her cold words had the desired effect. Wendy admits she's glad she took Nightingale's help, because Azima for once was speechless, clearly shaken despite her bravado. To thank Nightingale, Wendy promises her a special treat with chaos drinks. Cut to the next day, Roland reviews reports in his office and notes Wendy's recent accomplishments with satisfaction. Suddenly the landline rings. A messenger breathlessly informs him that the greatest explorer of the fjords, who goes by the name Sander, has arrived at the port with his fleet. The scene cuts to the docks. Margaret is there to greet Roland. But Sander is, in truth, Thunder in a ridiculously over-the-top disguise, complete with a fake mustache and flamboyant outfit, introducing himself as Sander Flyingbird of Double Dragon Island. Roland is utterly dumbfounded. While he understands Thunder wants to keep his identity hidden, especially from Lightning, he also knows that if Maggie catches wind of him, she'll immediately recognize the man beneath the fake whiskers. Thunder is heartbroken that he might have to abandon his carefully crafted look. Roland notes that Thunder, despite being in his 40s, is as youthful in spirit as ever, a true adventurer at heart. The adventurer then inquires about the steamships. Well, Roland admits progress is slow. Steel is hard to work with, unlike wood. Even with ready docks, they're far from mass production. Thunder, nonetheless, is eager to tour the dock. Then, something else catches Roland's eye. These chests are full of golden royals. Turns out, it's the revenue from perfume and chaos drink sales, delivered early, even though the payment wasn't due yet. Margaret proudly states that they figured they should drop it off since they were coming this way anyway. Both products are exploding in popularity. Perfume sells well, but chaos drinks are in a league of their own. High-end flavors go for insane prices, and even the less popular ones get snatched up. The drinks have become symbols of luxury and power, now commonplace at major Chamber of Commerce banquets. Roland is, once again, flabbergasted by the booming success. Suddenly, Nightingale feels the presence of a witch on the ship. As Roland glances in that direction, we notice the mermaid witch, Joan. He has heard a lot about Joan, and he's genuinely glad to see that she's finally able to walk on her own feet again. He knows she stopped interacting with humans for a long while after choosing to live in the sea. Without the help of mind resonance, she probably would have taken a lot longer to get used to human life. Joan has forgotten how to speak the human tongue. Thunder tried to find her teachers, but none of them made much progress. She can only say a few simple words, not enough to hold a real conversation. On top of that, some parts of her body have permanently changed due to her powers. But that's pretty understandable considering she gave up her human form for so long. Witches are supposed to look like ordinary humans when they're not using magic. But Joan's different. She still has blue scales covering her body, just like those sea monsters. Well, Roland's not complaining. Just like Lorgar, her animal traits only add to her charm. Lorgar was the third princess of the Wild Flame clan, and even though her wolf ears were harmless, people still feared her because of them. So he fears Joan would have had it even worse. Roland steps closer for a better look. The girl looks timid as he stands in front of her. Roland asks Margaret if anyone has ever tried to hurt her on purpose. Turns out she has been a victim of abuse. If they want her to live like a human again, she'll need to interact with people. But very few can accept her appearance, even folks in the fjords. Ever since they took her in, she's scared off a bunch of maids and tutors. Some even started spreading rumors that Thunder was raising a sea monster. Honestly, maybe the sea was a better place for her. But Margaret argues that Joan actually likes being around people. She still spends hours each week soaking in the sea, but she enjoys the company of the few maids who accept her. In the past, she only ate raw fish. Now she prefers cooked meat. Right now, she's hiding behind her maid out of fear, probably because it's her first time seeing Roland. Margaret apologizes on her behalf, saying Joan isn't used to being around this many people. Roland hopes she'll get more comfortable once she starts living in Neverwinter. After that, they decide to go see the ships. A while later, they arrive at the factory zone where the ships are being built. Margaret is absolutely boggled out of her mind when she sees the massive ship under construction. The ship is so enormous that even Thunder can't help but marvel at its magnificence. He goes as far as to say that even a sea monster would be terrified of it. The crew members are equally excited to work on something this massive. They're all hyped to be part of it. Thunder knew Neverwinter was ahead of the game when it came to shipbuilding, but he didn't expect his expectations to be blown out of the water like this. He has no freaking clue how they managed to fuse such heavy metal parts together. Literally no one in the fjords can even wrap their heads around the idea of using this kind of material to build something that could tear through basically anything. While he acknowledges how incredible this ship is, he's pretty sure this thing must have cost a fortune. Well, Roland isn't worried about the price. He tries to reassure Thunder that it's not as expensive as it seems. After all, Roland wants to contribute to ocean exploration. Any discovery out there could lead to major breakthroughs for all of humankind. As the ruler of Grey Castle, he's willing to do his part. Thunder feels genuine admiration for Roland's ambition. It's rare to see someone spend their money on something they might not even live to see. Even in the fjords, the chamber is only interested in routes that bring back profit. It's a pity Roland can't be an explorer himself, but his ambition has already surpassed that of countless adventurers. Thunder is still mesmerized by the sheer size and beauty of the vessel. It's not just a ship, it feels more like a moving castle. It's the most beautiful ship he's ever seen, and he's blown away in more ways than he ever thought possible. With this ship, he feels like he could finally cross the Vortex Sea. But Roland warns him not to jump to conclusions just yet. To be honest, Roland knows nothing about shipbuilding. Right now, he just sees it as a complex machine, not a true ship yet. He tells Thunder to test it in actual water first before deciding what it's capable of. Whether it's speed, stability, or food capacity, it'll all need real numbers. After that, Thunder will be setting out to explore the Shadow Sea once the months of demons are over. Just seeing this massive ship makes him wonder what other inventions Roland might be cooking up. Well, looks like he'll find out tomorrow. And until then, Thunder is free to enjoy the welcoming party tonight. He might even meet the person he's been dying to see. It's deep into the night, and the castle is filled with sweet melodies as musicians play and guests enjoy the feast. At the banquet, we find Lorgar, Lightning, and Maggie together. Lorgar seems curious about this famous explorer from the same town Lightning once lived in. So it's a bit strange that Lightning hasn't greeted him yet. Well, Lightning's never even heard of the guy. If she's being real, he must be a nobody. After all, there are tons of explorers from the fjords. Most of them are just captains who've made a few trips and never even seen stormy waters. But as far as Lorgar's concerned, if the chief is meeting this man, then he's probably not a nobody. She even suggests Lightning ask him about her father. Maybe he knows something about that fellow adventurer. Maggie shares the same thoughts and pesters her to ask her out. Since both of them insisted so much, the adventurous girl finally decides to take her time to talk to the guy. She gives him a proper look and finds him way over the top. Before she can approach and interrogate him herself, her path is blocked by Margaret, who takes the liberty to introduce the explorer. He is Santander, an explorer from Double Dragon Island, and also the leader of the Dragonhead Chamber of Commerce. He holds a lot of admiration for her father, too. Finally, she comes face to face with the man and introduces herself. While she's originally from the fjords, she wasn't born there. Santander responds by recognizing her as Thunder's daughter. He's already heard of her through Margaret, who always speaks highly of her. She once told him that the greatest explorer's daughter is currently residing in Grey Castle. He compliments her because she looks a lot like her father. But Lightning can tell this dude's lying, as her father had always said she looks a lot like her deceased mother, though she never got to meet her. She thanks Santander and insists on hearing about her father. Thunder reveals that some say he drifted to an unknown island, while others say he returned to the fjords. But because he encountered something strange during his travels, he decided to keep a low profile and prepare to form a new exploration team in secret. There are other rumors too, but they're so ill-intentioned it's better not to talk about them. Santander personally believes the second theory, that Thunder is coming back. After all, those rumors aren't enough to take down such a mighty adventurer. In fact, many of his crew members actually survived. Well, Lightning shares the same thoughts and believes her father is still kicking. Sister Lightning then asks Santander about his exploits and the islands he's discovered. Looks like she's thrown a tough question his way. Santander's gonna have a hard time answering. He decides to be honest and reveals that he only became an explorer because of her father. Ever since the discovery of Shadow Island, many have wanted to explore that area, including the Chamber of Commerce. His fleet wanted to deliver supplies to the transit island, but bumped into sea ghosts on the way and deviated from their route. To his surprise, he arrived at an island that wasn't on the map. Roland notices how this guy is being such a drama king, and what's more amazing is that Lightning isn't even suspicious. Meanwhile, Lightning totally buys his story and believes he's one of the lucky few who's done a handful of long-distance trips. Now that she's satisfied her curiosity, she decides to leave him alone with Roland. She pays her respects to His Majesty and walks off. Margaret, meanwhile, can't help but admire how Lightning carries herself. She literally feels like a grown-up. Roland then tells this proud father how Lightning never gave up on adventures, even creating her own exploration group. Though there are only 3 members right now, he's positive she's going to catch up to her father unless she's locked away completely. This only makes the proud father happier, while Roland assures him he'll make sure to take care of her. Meanwhile, both Lorgar and Maggie want to hear what Santander told her about her father. Lightning's disappointed to reveal that he knows nothing, but she ain't sweating it. Things are more fun when she has to find out for herself. She's going to use the power of her exploration group. They're also waiting for Sister Moon, who's been very confident and bold but hasn't shown up yet. Apparently, Sister Moon challenged Lightning and Maggie to some kind of challenge, one we still don't know about. Even Lorgar doesn't seem to know, but let's hope to find out soon. Finally, Sister Moon arrives, although Sister Lightning expected her to chicken out and run away. Moon claims she just needed time to look into something to make sure the challenge would work out. Moon then introduces her teammates of the Detective League, which includes 3 witches, Summer, Lily, and 1 unfamiliar face, likely from the Slumber Island witches. Looks like both Lorgar and Lightning are clueless about this Detective League, So Sister Moon explains that since she and her companions solved a crime scene involving a witch awakening at the school, Roland gave them the title. If Lightning still has doubts about their legitimacy, she's invited to ask Wendy about it. In fact, Wendy even gave them a unique nickname, Kuto Shinchi, though none of them know exactly what it means. This is when the new witch reveals the name means seeking truths. If she can help protect Neverwinter, then she'll join. Summer is also ready to join, and Sister Scroll gives both girls the pass to join. Then Lily steps forward, expressing that she doesn't want to be part of this childish group. She still has many specimens waiting for her in the lab, and she needs to expand the mushroom farm, so she really doesn't have time to mess around. Of course, Sister Moon vents her frustration by calling her a traitor, while Lily doesn't give a damn. She storms out with anger etched across her face, while poor Moon tries her best to stop her. Just like every time, Moon manages to convince the arrogant Lily. This investigation is about a witch among the visitors from the fjords. While Moon was by the port checking the pole lights, she happened to see a unique witch. She's heard that these people from the fjords will be staying in Neverwinter for months before sailing back. In other words, that witch will be staying here too. Hence, their challenge will revolve around that witch. The challenge is to make her join their team, and whoever succeeds will win. Lily then points out that there are now 4 members in the Detective League, making them the biggest group within the Union. But since Lightning formed her group first, she guesses they're even. With this contest, they'll see which group is strongest. Meanwhile, Lorgar is listening to all this and starts choking on her food when she realizes these girls are literally competing over who gets to win over a stranger first. What's even more baffling is how both teams are treating it like some serious duel instead of a childish stunt. Lightning wholeheartedly accepts the challenge, even though they're clearly outnumbered, and Maggie is equally fired up. Moon then points out why this is going to be a huge challenge. First of all, that witch named Joan barely talks. She struggles to even speak with normal people. On top of that, she's extremely cautious around strangers, pretty much the same way they all were back when the church was hunting them. So yeah, this isn't going to be some quick win. It's going to take time. As for the criteria to decide the winner, it's pretty simple. Whoever gets Joan to side with them wins. Lightning, being the confident lady she is, already has a plan in mind. This is when Lorgar chimes in with a few questions of her own. She's heard Joan will only be staying here for a few months and will eventually have to leave. So really, what's the point in making her pick sides if she's just going to be gone later anyway? But Sister Moon reminds her that if they can help Joan let go of her traumatic past and look toward the future, it could turn her whole life around. And honestly, that's exactly what Roland wants for her. Lorgar genuinely starts feeling admiration for these girls, way different from how she originally saw them as childish. Meanwhile, Lily starts grilling Moon for eavesdropping on Roland's conversations. While they're bickering, Maggie seizes the moment. She grabs a chunk of cooked meat and places it on Joan's plate, her first move to win Joan over. And hey, looks like the little gesture worked. Joan actually looks really glad. Maggie rushes back to Lightning with the good news that Joan agreed to join the exploration group. Maggie keeps the momentum going, and soon enough Joan and Lightning exchange greetings. Joan officially joins Lightning's team. Well, looks like Lightning just won the match. You know, it actually took Margaret a lot of convincing to get Joan to leave the water. It took exactly 2 months, and it was Miss Camilla who helped speed things up. Thunder is intrigued too. He wants to analyze how Lightning and Maggie pulled it off. That's when Roland points out how Lorgar and Maggie actually share the same kind of differences as Joan, which might be why the mermaid is starting to open up to them. Whether it's a pigeon or a wolf girl, Joan sees them as being just like her. Roland also reveals that back in the south, even though witches are treated like goddesses by the Sand People, Lorgar still had to deal with alienation because of how she looked. And then, Margaret finally says something she's been wanting to for a long time. Originally, she planned to take Joan back to the fjords and settle down with her after the exploration was over. Living in the sea must have been lonely. She didn't want Joan to be alone anymore. So now she wants Roland to take care of her. Back in the fjords, there wouldn't be much space for Joan, and not many people to talk to either. But if she stays here, maybe she can make real friends. After all, Margaret's the one who pulled her out of the sea. She can't just ignore the trust Joan placed in her. This is the best place for her to grow. And Roland is more than happy to welcome her into the Witch Union. Then we cut to Sister Moon, who's in absolute shambles after losing the battle to Sister Lightning. Lily, as usual, is super annoyed at Moon's whiny behavior and just wants her to go get some damn sleep. Well, looks like it's going to take a lot for Moon to recover from this loss. Like seriously, her pity party is really getting under Lily's skin. She thinks Moon should just acknowledge her defeat and move on already. She even suggests disbanding the Detective League after such a humiliating loss. After giving poor Moon a whole lot of scolding, Lily finally sits back to focus on her studies, now that there's finally some silence in the room. But that silence only makes her more unsettled. She can't concentrate at all. She starts feeling bad for scolding her more than necessary. Sure, Moon might be clingy and annoying at times, but she's got a good heart. Other than eavesdropping on Roland's conversation, it's not like she did anything that terrible. She also remembers how Moon used to be super timid and constantly criticized by the original Witch Association leader, Kara. It took her a lot to bounce back and be her extroverted self again. Looks like Moon still hasn't given up on her detective league, so she offers Lily a $10 bill as a reimbursement for joining her detective league. Lily's relieved to see her scolding didn't totally crush Sister Moon's mood. She grabs the $10 note but still doesn't agree to rejoin this detective crap. After all, she's got a ton of work to do and no time to dwell on it. But she's willing to help her out with investigations just a little. As long as Moon doesn't bother her during work hours, she'll lend a hand with the detective squad. If Moon really wants to expand, she shouldn't have come to her. Not everyone is as busy as Soraya in the Union, so she should focus on people who have more time. For example, Amy could help out. But Moon argues Amy's a witch from Wolfheart and already has her own social circle. Lily thinks that's even better. If she pulls Amy in, she might drag the whole Wolfheart squad along with her. Besides, Annie, Hero, and Sister Blade aren't all that busy either. Not to mention, Sister Blade already works with her. It doesn't matter where they're from. Joan is from the fjords, and she doesn't care about anyone's origins either. Moon could even ask some of the witches who used to be with Bloodfang. They're usually free and wouldn't have a reason to say no. If she follows these suggestions, she might end up with more members than the exploration group. At least she won't fall behind in numbers. But she's got to remember two things. Don't cause Roland any trouble, and don't pick a fight with the exploration group. Lily doesn't know why, but she feels like there's no way they can beat Lightning's group. Anyway, that's all Lily had to say, so Moon is free to leave now. But Moon just stands there, awkwardly staring at her friend. Turns out the girl wants her $10 note back since she wants to use it as a recruitment fee. Since Lily isn't officially joining, she figures she should return it. Of course, Lily refuses to hand it back. A new day rolls in, and people in the tavern are going wild, drinking, laughing, chatting like there's no tomorrow. That's when a prestigious-looking guy strolls in. The tavern owner lights up and greets his esteemed guest with full hospitality. He's even saved a seat for him on the third floor by the window. The noble casually tosses him a golden royal coin for the service. After being generously rewarded, the tavern owner personally guides him to the best spot. Up on the third floor, people are all buzzing about the new railway tracks Roland's been building. Word is, a huge cart with a bunch of trailers is going to travel on them. The noble brags that his steam engines are already pulling trailers. They're so efficient, they're basically replacing mules and horses. Just like City Hall promised, it's a revolutionary mode of transportation. What's more exciting is that when Roland hypes something up, he never exaggerates. Now the first steam engine train is actually on the tracks, and people are losing their minds watching this giant steel beast zoom through town. To really drive the point home, Roland even had a horse-drawn carriage set up next to the train, just to show how much more convenient and powerful the train is compared to those poor, struggling horses. Everyone's peeking out their windows, blown away that this thing can carry as much load as a cargo ship. Not to mention it's dragging 7 full carriages behind it. That's quite shocking for these primitive hobos. Until now, steam engines were only used for minecarts. But this one's a beast, completely different from the usual stuff. In other kingdoms, the nobles are still obsessed with their outdated luxuries. They're riding around in horse-drawn carriages on bumpy brick roads. The future is here, but sadly, not everyone's going to get a piece of it. Cut to Barov, who's excitedly reporting a 60% increase in settlement applications. Almost half of them are newcomers from just the past 2 months, around 725 people total. That's 5 months worth of applications crammed into 3.5 months. The numbers dipped a little when the devils attacked, but not anymore. Now it's climbing again, which means people aren't scared of the devils anymore. It's a huge win for Neverwinter. City Hall has also received invitations from a bunch of merchants, including chambers of commerce from Redwater and Silver City. They're eager to meet His Majesty, mostly because they're curious about the trains. But Roland tells his finance manager to reject all these freeloaders. Trains aren't goods he's planning to sell. Even if he did, literally no one would have enough money to buy one. Instead, Roland suggests advertising other products to them, like those first or second-gen steam engines used in the mines. Seeing how fired up people are, Roland decides to launch another recruitment drive. This war is going to decide the fate of humankind, so they better treat it seriously. Once the months of demons end, he hopes to have at least 10,000 soldiers ready, and the resources stocked up too. With that, he dismisses the old man. Suddenly, Nightingale pops out of the mist with an urgent report coming from Sylvie. The devils have started to make their move. They've expanded their territory, creating new camps. Roland quickly stops Barov before he leaves the room and orders him to gather all the ministers for a meeting at the castle, since this involves the trouble they're facing in the north. Cut to the thick of the meeting, where Sylvie has just finished narrating everything she knows about these recent developments. Roland points out that they found beast tracks in areas that were once completely safe, and he wants Tequila Witch's opinion on what the devils are trying to achieve by doing this. Well, as far as Pasha is concerned, this is just the same old trick those guys have been using. Since threats didn't work, they're going to use force. Like she has said before, The devils will pressure their foes bit by bit as they push closer and closer. This is something they often do with humans. If this were a witch city, the devils would have just killed everyone. While Pasha had estimated that devils wouldn't make their move for another 6 months, considering the current situation, the devils seem to be rushing things. Not to mention, things on the battlefield are constantly changing, and only going by plans on paper is foolish. She never said he should let his guard down. Roland feels kind of flabbergasted how she's trying to clear her name for her off estimates. It goes without saying that he's always been on high alert, but many battle plans had been based on the estimated timeline given by her. If the devils were to attack in 6 months, the rail tracks would be done by then. By that time, he'll send cannons and armored carriages at them. There's no way in hell devils will still have the energy to establish an outpost. Agatha then vouches for the validity of the information Pasha provided. The Union had to make great sacrifices just to obtain intel on the Red Line's expansion, so they were certain that 6 months is the time limit for the devils. But this time, the devils have broken that limit, so the current battle plans are useless with this unexpected outcome. I guess this is to be expected. After all, this intel is already 400 years old, so some change is expected. Pasha perhaps feels that those huge grotesque skeletons must have allowed the devils to expand the Red Line rapidly. Then again, those devils might have something else planned entirely. The final call is up to Roland whether he wants to intercept the devils and launch an attack or wait for their next move. Well, it looks like our guy has made up his mind. He wants to engage in battle and orders his companions to get ready. Pasha commends Roland for his decisive move. After all, ignoring the danger is equivalent to suicide. He further assigns the advisory board to generate a plan before sundown. One of the representatives, Ferlin, adds his 2 cents by revealing that the flying beasts have completely overtaken crucial territory. So if the First Army takes action, they will surely be discovered. Once the First Army is exposed, he fears that the First Army might find itself at a disadvantage. Roland suggests he make the plan first, and he'll worry about the rest later when he reads it. Day 2 arrives, and Iris has done all the homework, making an elaborate strategy. Hell, she didn't even sleep to make sure she formulated this strategy as soon as possible. Instead of dwelling on the nitty-gritty stuff, Roland puts the book down and asks her for the conclusion. Iris reveals that if the First Army advances like normal, the beasts will definitely notice them. The Devil Commander's ability will determine how much damage they're capable of causing. The advisory board assumed the worst, that the First Army will complete the mission, but not without severe consequences. For a troop of 500 soldiers, around half of them should make it back. The witches will not sustain any casualties, and as long as they don't risk their lives, all of them should return safely. Roland kind of commends her for such a grounded conclusion she's come up with. The current problem they're facing right now is logistics. With the First Army supply line implicated, the First Army will have to split up, but defeating the enemies completely is impossible as well. As the battle drags on, morale will drop, and this will impact the front line severely. 1 week later, the attacking patterns of the devils will become harder to predict. So in that case, the best thing would be to start attacking the enemy's camp. This is the easiest part of the battle. The army will successfully destroy the outpost, but they'll soon find their own base on fire too. The devils will realize the elaborate traps the Misty Forest has, so they will burn it. This will completely destroy the safety tunnels created by Miss Leaf. Triple the routes, and the First Army will completely lose their supplies. They will no longer have an advantage over the devils. Hence, they can only break through the devil's grasp and attempt to retreat. While formulating the strategy, she overestimated the population of devils, just to be cautious. Given how hastily they're acting, she fears the devils won't give up on their outposts so easily. While Roland doesn't find anything wrong with the overall battle strategy, he still wants to know who came up with this absurd fire idea. Well, it was Sir Morning Light. Though, according to everyone's collective analysis, with enough time, the devils will eventually discover Misty Forest's trap. So this fire scenario isn't that far-fetched. But Roland is more interested in her second plan because he knows how much she loves challenging herself. She didn't stay up all night just to tell him she has no proper plan. As expected, the second plan she's come up with is quite different. Since no one can guarantee the safety of the supply route, she decides to make it disappear altogether. Roland is all ears to hear her second plan, so she begins explaining. Since Tequila's devouring worm can dig tunnels through mountain ranges, doing the same underneath barren lands shouldn't be a problem either. All they need are 2 worm vessels digging together to create a tunnel big enough for horse carriages to pass through. She's already asked Minister Carl, the one in charge of infrastructure, about it. His conclusion is that the unstable structure of the Mudlands might make it impossible to open up a space large enough to accommodate an underground palace like the one in the 3rd border town. But if they go deep enough, they might be able to create a passable tunnel. The construction work will start within the First Army's main camp. The entrance to the passage will be a shaft heading underground from the camp's center, covered by a tent and disguised as an ordinary structure. Once the passage is no longer needed after retreat, she plans to seal the shaft and cover it with soil, leaving behind only a vent to maintain air circulation. This is going to take about half a month. longer than usual. But with devils disrupting them, it's unlikely they could maintain normal efficiency anyway. With that, the First Army's greatest weakness will also disappear. The army will appear in the shape of a fist, while the logistics hidden behind it will be concealed. That fist will immediately attract the devil's full attention. When Roland asks if she proposed this idea, she responds with a yes, though mostly, it was the result of cooperation between multiple departments. In addition to the Ministry of Construction, the Arithmetic Academy also joined in, though they weren't aware of the second plan's details. Roland feels a swell of admiration at how Iris is trying to combine the strengths of every department to come up with the most efficient approach possible. He decides to go along with her plan. She then reveals there's just one more thing. Plan number 2 will still result in casualties. After all, the devils will have the upper hand before the First Army arrives at its destination, and they won't be able to defend with formations or forts. If the Battle of Divine Will is as brutal as everyone claims, then the First Army needs to be prepared. Overcoming this challenge is the first step. Still, she thinks Roland cares too much about the lives of his soldiers. But this time, the devils are their real enemies, so she hopes he's ready to endure the casualties. Some things are going to be tougher than usual. With that, Roland dismisses her for now. As soon as she leaves, an annoyed nightingale pops out of her mist, clearly irritated that Iris lectured Roland for caring too much about his people. Then again, Roland doesn't think she's wrong. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and it never hurts to hear it. Suddenly, Nightingale receives a transmission bringing good news. Apparently, the third group of witches from Sleeping Island is set to arrive in Neverwinter tomorrow night. Lady Camilla Derry will be leading them. Roland wants Wendy to welcome them with everything they've got. Then he suddenly remembers something, and asks her to confirm if Camilla is the same witch who wanted to travel the seas with Joan. Nightingale says yes. That suddenly gives Roland a bit of confidence. He'd always assumed the devils had all the advantages. But maybe now, they can start tipping the scales. Nightingale questions how the two things are even related. Roland's not entirely sure about the plan he is cooking up in his mind, but it's worth a shot. When Camilla arrives, he needs to have a personal chat with her. The scene cuts to Redwater River. A lone boat sails through the waters, making its way to Neverwinter City. On board is Andrea, and accompanying her is this jacked-up lady. She's actually one of the Divine Soldier Witches. As they catch up, the Divine Witch drops a little lore about her past. She reveals she had to live among mortals because the Alliance never wasted their time on weak witches. So after the war, her existence didn't mean much to the Alliance. With no support from her own kind, she had no choice but to live among mortals. When the city fell, it was the mortals who stayed behind until the very end. But when she was fighting Dawn, she truly looked like a fighting witch. Centuries of training changed everything. She actually feels lucky to have become a divine punishment witch. It made her stronger. It let her help others. And meeting His Majesty Roland was like a reward. Andrea isn't sure why she's getting all this personal history dumped on her. The Divine Witch says it's because she envies her. With someone as talented and blessed as Andrea, she would have been held in the highest regard back in the day. Andrea awakened at such a high level despite being so young, giving her the potential to be one of Tequila's top candidates. The lady then reveals her old dream of joining the Divine Army and receiving Lady Natalia's blessing before every expedition. Now she's lost the ability to grow stronger, while Andrea hasn't even reached her limit. Even if Andrea hasn't faced too many hardships yet, no matter how miserable she might feel, she should remember that someone else would die to live her life. Andrea is genuinely moved by her words, and she can't help but thank the woman. As Andrea is basking under the vast sky, feeling the chill breeze, Maggie suddenly comes flying in and crashes right into her. Looks like Maggie's gotten even heavier, a perfect weight to be grilled on a steak. Without wasting a second, she shifts into her devil form because she needs to get Andrea there as fast as possible. When they arrive at the border town, Roland is already waiting for Andrea. He wants to test a few weapons since the First Army will be heading into battle tomorrow. But before the First Army reaches the tunnel, he wants to fine-tune this new weapon made specifically for her. Sensing the urgency, Andrea realizes the devils must be rushing, even though there's still plenty of time before the red moon. Anyway, she walks straight to the box holding the weapon. Turns out it's a military-grade sniper rifle, but it doesn't have a scope. Andrea isn't sure how she's supposed to use the sniping potential without seeing the target. Well, for a special weapon like this, Roland has arranged a special scope. Normal optics won't cut it. That's why Sylvie, Spear Passy, and Camilla are here. Basically, Camilla will help Sylvie connect with Andrea, while Spear Passy will make sure to replenish their magic. Spear Passy feels pretty annoyed about being dragged out of Dragon Ridge just for this experiment. She even caught a cold from the flight. Roland recalls how she was paid in chaos drinks yet acts like she's volunteering for free. Back to the main point, Andrea asks how they can be sure the magic will still work when her ability is active. Roland says that's exactly why they're testing it. Cut to Knight Carter, pacing anxiously around the gynecology ward. Turns out, his wife is supposed to deliver their baby today, and the wait for the good news is killing him. Finally, Eileen comes out of the ward with the news. Miss May is going to make it through. After all, she's the toughest person Eileen's ever met. Meanwhile, outside, a parade is happening as the First Army prepares to set off. Eileen's husband is joining the First Army too. He's been waiting for this battle to get revenge for a long time. He wants to comfort the souls of those killed by the devils. Suddenly, a baby's cries fill the air, and Knight Carter rushes back inside to find a chibi Carter sleeping next to his mother. The trio shares a warm hug, lighting up the scene with pure cuteness. It's the middle of the night, northeast of Neverwinter City, in the center of the misty forest. A soldier steps out of his tent to take a dump, but suddenly, he notices supplies moving inside one of the train carriages. Seeing stuff move freaks him out completely. Turns out, it's just divine punishment witches, and inside the carriage are devouring worms craving food. The witches quickly get barrels of food and offer them to the worms. The soldier watches as the worms devour the entire barrels. He is totally fascinated by all of it. Neverwinter City is full of crazy mysteries, and he wants to uncover every one of them. Nightingale gets a report that the First Army has successfully completed the first step of the plan. Now, they'll gather at Station 2 in the Misty Forest and move forward about 2 kilometers until the inflection point. While marking territory on the map, Roland asks about the Devils' reaction. According to Sylvie's report, the Devils haven't moved yet, and they're still focused on building their outpost. A few black stone pillars have already been established. A red line has appeared behind the outpost as well, and the advisory board predicts there's a limited number of long-legged creatures. Roland takes this as good news and suggests the army keep watching the Devils and report any changes. If everything goes as planned, the First Army will enter the Devils' surveillance circle in 6 days, which will be late autumn. Nightingale suddenly appears from her mist, noticing Roland's troubled expression. She thought everything went well during the new weapon test, so it makes no sense why he is looking so upset. Roland admits the test was successful, but he's not sure if it'll work on the chaotic battlefield. As far as she's concerned, the method allowed them to hit a balloon from 5 kilometers away. That's beyond impressive. And Andrea will definitely put the weapon to good use. Roland hopes so. He plans to nap later in his office and tells Nightingale not to wake him unless it's an absolute emergency. With that, he falls asleep and wakes up in his apartment in the dream world. He checks the calendar and realizes today's the day Garcia returns from HQ. As promised, she's bringing back a book written over half a century ago, containing details of the Battle of Divine Will. He quickly calls her to ask if she got the book. Garcia says she kept her promise, but is annoyed it took him 3 days to contact her. Anyway, a while later, he knocks on her apartment door to meet her in person and get the book. When she opens the door, she can be seen wearing her traditional sports outfit. As he makes himself at home, he asks if she has a match today. She says no and explains why she's wearing the outfit. Apparently, she's going to protest rumors that the Three Leaf Corporation plans to demolish the wall on North Street. He wishes her good luck, which makes Garcia angry that he's not joining her. He quickly reminds her he's a newbie who's never fought a single match, so it wouldn't help if he went. She then shows him the list of the people who are about to join the protest. Literally none of them are martialists. They're all just apartment residents, yet they're willing to protest. If he chooses to stay silent just because he's not famous, then everyone will ignore his existence. As he's reading the record of people, he notices one striking name, Barolo Tehim. Turns out it's the name of a devil who lives in room 0510. Once this devil leaves his apartment building to join the protest, Roland decides to read this guy's memory shards. So he hands her the long list back, turning her request him joining the protest. She annoyingly walks into her room, brings out the book he wanted, and once she throws it to him, she wants him to leave now. As he grabs the book, he notices that the author is some unknown guy. Garcia adds that the author died before they could finish the book. The association failed to find any information on them. Archiving should have been a thing back then. Not to mention, this person would have been a martialist capable of commanding the force of nature. Even if they were dead, there should still be some records on them. Roland then heads on his way with the book, and once he gets into his apartment and dares to open it, he reads that they've been deceived by the holy power. Of course, this makes absolutely no sense to our boy. When he reads further, the author explains that the force of nature comes from corrosion, yet many humans still see it as a gift from God because it's capable of bringing miracles. However, he's not sure why it is that only humans have the force of nature. Perhaps it's because humans are the lucky ones. In order to find an answer, he dared to visit those ruins. During his journey, he realized that humans aren't the only ones who can use the force of nature. It was no coincidence that this unknown species obtained the same force and became the human race's enemy. But the question is, even though they no longer exist, it still doesn't make sense why corrosion is still a thing, and why the awakenings are still happening. Or maybe the battle of divine will never ends. He's got to understand what sort of world they live in. Be it divine blessings or gifts, they all seem to be fake. In a nutshell, the author is also seeking answers to questions like why corrosion is still happening, why awakenings are still taking place, and why the battle of divine will never ends. The contents of the book are so creepy that Roland ends up shutting it. While this stuff might be a reference to what's happening in the dream world, it also shares similarities with the original world. He then decides to call Garcia once again. As he's about to do that, he accidentally knocks the book off the table. The pages flip open, and inside is a little red slip of paper. When Roland picks it up and reads it, he learns that the divine will has appeared, and they shall meet at Rose Cafe, number 302. Damn, I seriously hate this dream world bullshit. I wish I could skip over it, but I gotta endure it for your sake, guys. He calls her and explains how he read the book and found it seriously unsettling. Garcia assures him that he's not alone. It's purposely crafted to mess with your mind, so he better not let it get to his head. The Martialist Association inspected the ruins left behind by the volcano, and apparently it was covered in lava 200 years ago. Roland tries to get a few more answers, but since Garcia's in a hurry, she hangs up on him. Roland realizes that there was no slip when he was going through this book, which likely means it appeared only recently. In other words, within this world he created, someone has noticed his uniqueness and is keeping an eye on him. He packs his bag and decides to visit the devil's apartment for now. Once he's in the apartment, he finds that secret door that can lead him to the devil's memories. Once he breaks the door lock and enters the place, he sees the city of the devils, with tall towers surrounded by mist. Suddenly, Roland hears footsteps approaching him. When he looks in front of him, there are devils heading his way. This shocks the hell out of him for obvious reasons. After all, living beings weren't supposed to exist inside memory fragments. He begins to panic when he realizes the devils are almost on top of him. He thinks of running for a split second, but turns out the devils just walk past him like they can't even see him. When Roland tries to touch them out of curiosity, his hand passes right through them like they're just a mirage. It's then Roland realizes one crucial thing. The reason he couldn't see much of Zero's memory is because she harbored more resentment and resistance toward him. That's why he can't access everything. He proceeds further into this devil's nest, where he sees a giant pit filled with glowing red mist. All the devils are gathering there. Seeing this, Roland remembers what Pasha mentioned in her reports, which is that the Federation once captured some weak, low-intelligence devils as hostages. But back then, they weren't sure whether those were devils or just another race enslaved by them. Roland also can't see any elite devils supervising the others, which only means they're acting entirely on their own. Roland wants to learn more about the origin of the devils, and whether male and female devils exist too. Or maybe they reproduce in some way completely different from humans. Once all the devils arrive at the center of this giant pit, a devil shows up, along with his creepy, fiery monster companion, right in the middle of the arena. It looks like they're holding some sort of ceremony, and this devil is probably here to engage in a duel. Then the other contestant appears, who just so happens to be a female version. But Roland isn't ready to believe it's actually a female devil. It looks more like a devil with traits of a human female. Since devils aren't related to humans at all, it makes no sense for them to look so familiar. The female devil walks right into the middle of the arena. The other devil and its monster companion bow respectfully to her. She then starts doing some kind of magic mojo, causing the mist to boil, and out pop these tentacles from the mist. One of the tentacles stretches toward the ordinary devil and engraves it with a weird red magic stone. The monster companion also gets a stone embedded in its body, and both of them start exuding red energy. Roland has no clue what the hell is going on. Once both devils have the red jewel embedded in them, the creepy crawly goes berserk and charges straight at the female devil. But just as it crashes into her, she vanishes into thin air. The monster then turns its attention to its devil companion. The devil lunges at the creature and rips its limbs apart. After pulling out its spine, the devil pierces the poor bastard's head, killing it on the spot. Then it takes out the gem embedded in the monster's chest and eats it. As soon as he gulps the gem down, he feels a surge of power and begins transforming into a human-like devil. This, of course, shocks Roland to his core. He recalls what Pasha told him about how devils once made contact with humans. Back then, devils were no different from beasts, but a human bestowed knowledge upon them. That's why elite devils look so similar to humans now. Roland suddenly wakes up from the dream, head pounding. Nightingale is there looking worried. That's when he tells her he's made some discoveries. She takes a closer look at his sweaty face and can tell something is definitely wrong, but Roland assures her that he's totally fine. Besides, his dream world doesn't influence his reality. But since Nightingale can see through lies, she knows he's not being honest about his troubled face. Roland insists again that he's doing fine. It's just that a few of the discoveries shook him a little. A while later, Roland holds a small meeting where he informs Wendy and the Tequila Witches about his new discoveries. Pasha immediately understands how important this information is. No one's ever made it that deep into a devil city before, let alone returned alive, which makes Roland the first person to achieve this. Turns out, devils get their powers by merging with magic stones, and that answers a lot of existing questions. Since those mutated devils were capable of such drastic changes, it's safe to assume elite devils are born this way too. With enough magic stones, they might evolve into an entirely different species. This kind of change doesn't come from bloodline, it comes from mutation. Tilly then wonders if these devils could upgrade themselves indefinitely, so long they have enough stones. Well, turns out there's no restriction. Tilly also asks whether these devils are stronger than extraordinary witches. The Tequila Witch replies that you can't really compare them directly like that. Just like the old civilization once documented, magic is the path to godhood. One day they'll transcend. In other words, whether witches or devils, with deeper understanding and better mastery of magic, there's no limit to growth. That doesn't mean it's easy though. Birth through bloodline means steady growth, but after 400 years, who knows how many elite devils have been born. At the very least, they now know that even devils are victims of fate. And from Roland's intel, it's clear that evolving isn't easy. If it were, that crawling devil wouldn't have gone berserk and started attacking everyone. Roland is fascinated by how the Tequila Witches can figure out so much from just a little information. They're literally decoding entire theories just from a few scraps. With all the knowledge they've gathered, Pasha believes the Battle of Divine Will isn't as simple as everyone thinks. 6 days later, the First Army is in the misty forest when Sylvie spots enemies flying in the sky. She quickly reports to Roland that a group of beasts is coming straight toward the First Army. Roland tells them to stick to the plan. Sylvie, Andrea, and a few other witches are hiding inside an ark, a protective bubble created by one of the witches' abilities that helps them stay hidden. Sylvie orders the Ponytail Witch to ascend, and the ark quickly begins to ascend further in the sky. Once they're high up, lightning hops out of the ark, while the other witches mentally prepare for their next move. Andrea grabs her customized sniper rifle, and with the help of Camilla and Sylvie's powers, she can see the enemies like she's standing just a few meters away, even though she's kilometers away. She channels her magic into the sniper rifle, locks onto a target, and the only thing left is to pull the trigger. Keeping all of Roland's teachings in mind, she squeezes it. The bullet tears through the sound barrier, infused with her magic, making it even deadlier. Eventually, the bullet hits a devil on a monster, a solid success so far. All the witches involved in the attack are glad and pleased. Andrea notices the devils haven't realized what hit them yet, giving her the chance to take down even more. She starts firing round after round, taking devils out left and right. Literally, she solos the entire horde within seconds. A while later, the ark descends and lands at their secret base. Turns out, while the witches were fighting, Lightning and Maggie had been collecting bird-kiss mushrooms. Maggie also grabbed some spices for the barbecue. As night falls, all the girls are having the time of their lives, eating delicious mushroom barbecue. Ash decides to take the first watch once they're done eating. While everyone else sleeps soundly, she and Phyllis patrol for the night. Lightning lights up like a kid in a candy store, excited for a good night's sleep. Once everyone's asleep, Ash takes the first shift, letting Phyllis rest since divine witches suffer worse fatigue. If they don't rest for a long time, they might even lose control over their bodies. Both Andrea and others are sleeping soundly as well. Seeing this, Phyllis can't help but comment on how hard it is to find friends like these in the era of tequila. Here, everyone is so close it actually feels like a real family, though she's not sure if this friendship will last once the War of Divine Will begins. For common people like Ash, it's obvious that being together only strengthens their bonds, so she doesn't quite get what Phyllis means. Phyllis then reveals that magic doesn't just affect their abilities, it affects their temperament too. Like, if Ash wishes to achieve a goal using magic, the magic itself leads them in that direction. Ash finally understands what Phyllis is saying. She remembers being at her strongest when she was fueled by hatred, seeking to kill those from the church. The hate inside her gave her incredible power. If she hadn't met the princess, she fears she would have lived her life like a wild beast. Phyllis then asks why Ash decided to fight against the devils. Ash remembers a sweet memory of Tilly, and says she has someone she desperately wants to save. Since her beloved wants the devils out of Dawn, Ash is willing to fight to the death to make that happen. Though Tilly never wants her on the front lines risking her life. Phyllis wishes Ash the best of luck in finding her own goal. Only with a clear goal and unwavering will can extraordinaries grow stronger. Ash starts to ponder what her final goal actually is. It's the 22nd day of the expedition, and Roland is monitoring the First Army's progress on the map. The number of patrolling beasts has increased, and their range is straying from the First Army's original route. But Roland isn't stressing as it's all still under control. Nightingale adds that it's only 3 more days before the First Army should reach their destination, a place easy to defend and hard to infiltrate. Roland worries about the sniper team. He fears the devils might discover their location based on where the devils who got sniped were killed. If they want to complete the mission without being discovered, they'll have to figure out the best time to retreat. Right now, all they can do is put faith in them. Tequila witches are very good at judging danger levels, and the magic arc should help with their escape. Roland admits that rather than worry, he has other important matters to focus on. Since the weather is good today, he decides to try out the glider. Nightingale decides to tag along as she desperately wants to see the trial. In the east of Shallow Ports, we see the first prototype of a vehicle capable of flight. The witches are both astonished and skeptical about its abilities, especially since it looks fragile compared to the hardy steam machines. Roland wants to know Margaret's opinion on this machine. Well, if she has to be honest, she would have thought it was some prank by the Curious Society. A curious man from the society once tries to soar through the skies. He crafts a pair of wings and jumps off a tall building, but the wings can't handle the pressure and they snap mid-air. The man plummets to his death. Wendy is horrified by the morbid tale. Roland, noticing her shaken state, reassures her that his glider is different. It has 2 seats and is built to carry people safely. At last, Wendy and Tilly decide to try it for themselves. Wendy in particular looks incredibly nervous. Her hands tremble as she follows the takeoff steps exactly as instructed. When she finally disengages the brakes, the glider begins rolling forward. The wind rushes past them, and the cliff edge gets closer. Wendy panics seeing the end of the solid ground. She is scared so much so that she even forgets everything. Her mind goes blank as the glider speeds toward the drop. Tilly starts shouting, reminding her to use air. Wendy instinctively unleashes her magic, and the glider lifts just in time. Once airborne, Wendy slowly opens her eyes again, only to realize they haven't died. They're flying, soaring through the sky, far above the world. This is when fun begins, because this feels nothing like a hot air balloon. But as they stop ascending, Wendy yanks the gear back too hard in a moment of panic, causing the glider to jerk upward unnaturally. The steering gear jams, and they start to plummet. The glider crashes into the ground with a devastating thud. Miraculously, both Wendy and Tilly survive. Wendy, though ashamed, apologizes for letting him down. But Roland assures her that they can easily rebuild it. Many of the parts are salvageable. Determined, Wendy vows to try again. A few days later, she takes off once more, only to crash again. This time, she admits the fault lies with her. She panicked again, and her magic became unstable. Roland finally understands the crucial detail. Witches must be calm and focused to use their powers properly. But staying calm in a rattling, fast-moving glider is no easy task. Tilly volunteers to try next, but Wendy insists on one more attempt. She's studied the theory now and feels ready. Eventually, Tilly is the one driving it, and she seems to be nailing the task. For someone with less than 30 minutes of practice, it's impressive. As an extraordinary, her nervous system is more finely tuned than most, giving her superior coordination and adaptability. Roland sighs. If only he could build huge mechas, then devils would be fighting for their lives. An hour later, Wendy and Tilly land safely. The onlookers are amazed by their skill. Night falls. Roland visits his beloved girl's room. He sits beside her on the bed and holds her close, absorbing her warmth. They rarely have time together these days. Every 3 days, Anna travels to Northwest to wield the railway tracks. When she's not welding, she's building parts for weapons and gliders. She's tired, but she tells Roland she's happy, as long as her work helps his dream come true. They share a passionate kiss and spend the night enjoying each other's company. Far north, Iron Axe leads the First Army. He's ready to march forward, stepping over enemy bodies. But for 6 days, there's no sign of any devils. To understand the situation, Iron Axe orders a meeting with his advisors and representatives. In the meeting, they discuss about how quiet the devils has been lately. The only thing that restricts their movements is lack of red mist. But according to Sylvie's report, there is no shortage of red mist. So, either the devils are having problems with their logistics, or they simply don't want to waste their scouting devils getting killed unnecessarily. Iris believes there's no need to predict the enemy's motives. There are no obstacles above or underground. They just need to set up fortress cannons and blast the devil's outposts to the ground. Iron Axe agrees and orders Sylvie to be brought here via the magic arc. The attack must start at dusk tomorrow. The next day, dusk arrives. Soldiers have already prepared trenches and weapons. Finally, the captain gives the command everyone's been waiting for. The area erupts with cannon fire, shaking the night as devil towers crumble. The soldiers don't know if they've done much damage yet. Sylvie orders them to raise the cannons 5 degrees and fire once every 2 minutes. The soldiers obey. Boom after boom tears through the enemy towers. Since devils cannot move at night, Sylvie is confident these bastards have no choice but to endure this relentless assault. Within hours, she's sure the First Army will flatten the outposts. The dawn of the next day arrives, and the enemy's outpost looks worse for wear. Sylvie is surprised that the First Army had been firing all night, but there's still no sign of any devils. Suddenly, she notices silhouettes emerging from the smoke. Of course, these are devils. Well, it looks like those bastards were 2 steps ahead all along. Inside the middle troops' tent, Iron Axe loses his composure when he learns that the devils appeared out of thin air, without any sign of red mist or warnings. Even Agatha struggles to believe it, especially since devils cannot survive without red mist. Without support from the red mist, those devils can't even move, let alone fight. Iron Axe points out that this outpost can sustain 1,000 or so devils, so there must be another supply point nearby. Agatha isn't so sure. It looks like Iris has figured it out. The devils have dug tunnels all the way from the Tequila ruins. Sylvie failed to detect them because the tunnels start from the outpost itself. Assuming this is a standard troop, to destroy the outpost, you'd have to close in for an attack. In other words, the first army is leaving their rear exposed to the devils. If the devils strike again, the first army might find itself completely surrounded. Iris highlights how the devils gave up attacking halfway through and even shrank their patrol range just for this moment. They want to take everyone down in one fell swoop. The one wise man questions how did the devils escape Miss Sylvie's detection. Turns out, with the demonic beasts around, Sylvie can only observe from a distance. Her eye of magic might have missed a few spots. Iris thinks Sylvie probably just scanned the area around the outpost and overlooked what's underneath. She's not trying to blame Miss Sylvie or anything. It's just that everyone relies on her so much, they didn't think to check below. Magic's not something witches can ignore. Looking underground drains a ton of energy, and it's not like Sylvie can inspect every damn inch of dirt out there. Agatha checks in with Sylvie, asking if she can see what's going on beneath the devil army. Sylvie says she can give it a shot, but her magic might hold her back. Agatha tells her to at least try, and once Sylvie starts working her mojo to scan the ground, she hits something weird, and her vision is getting blocked by something mysterious. Iron Axe still does not want her to give up as they need this battle to prove who's the real prey here. Iris agrees. That cannon blast at dusk messed up their sabotage plans, losing the only bait these devils had, and now they've got to watch out for snipers. No matter how you slice it, it's a solid start. Iron Axe is on the same page. He doesn't care what the enemy's planning. If those bastards show themselves, he just wants them exterminated. Once the devils come into range, it's go time. Shortly after, the devils start showing up, and the soldiers unload hell, bullets flying everywhere. The hobos drop like flies. Agatha notices something's off. They're not even throwing spears back. Those bastards just keep charging forward, and that's when Agatha realizes what they're really up to. They're going for the artillery in the back. Meanwhile, the soldiers in the rear are prepping their giant cannon. One guy starts freaking out that the devils are only 900 meters away, and they still haven't fired. Heavy machine guns can hit targets past 150 meters, but with the devils zigzagging all over the place, accuracy's trash. If they run out of ammo without landing solid hits, it's game over. As the devils get closer, every soldier starts blasting like crazy. The moment they take down the first wave, the soldiers break into a victory dance. But the celebration doesn't last. Spears come flying in, and just like that, soldiers start dropping again. Morale plummets, and the survivors are yelling at each other to get back to position and return fire. The commander shouts at them to shoot down as many demonic beasts as possible before their line collapses. More devils start descending. But just before they tear through the regular troops, the divine punishment witches drop in and start throwing hands. The divine witch even skewers a bastard right through the chest. It's actually a new weapon Roland whipped up, and if they had this 400 years ago, Tequila might not have fallen. The three chiefs probably wouldn't have turned on each other either. As the witch grinds the devil's head into the dirt, she shouts loud and proud, "Tequila is back, baby." Meanwhile, the battalion commander's down, bleeding bad, barely able to move. The rescue team rushes over to stabilize him, but he's more worried about his soldiers as he wants an update on the front line. A terrified nurse delivers the bad news that the devils are attacking, and it looks like they're clashing with the Tequila witches. The commander's shocked. The devils never engage like this as they always stay airborne. He forces himself to stand, tells the nurse to focus on the wounded, and heads off to man the cannons himself. While he's loading, one of those stinky bastards sneaks up and lands a brutal hit. The devil raises his axe for the kill, but Agatha jumps in just in time, her icy powers stopping the blow. It's not enough to freeze the bastard solid, though. He smashes through the ice with a punch and lunges at Agatha. She immediately summons more frost and freezes him completely from head to toe. The soldier thanks her for saving his ass, but he better hold that thought, cause the second wave's already on them. Agatha calls out to Molly, who dives in and uses her water magic to pull the wounded soldiers off the battlefield. More devils arrive and immediately start hurling spears. Agatha saves that same crazy-ass soldier again and tells him to fall back with his men before it's too late. But the battalion commander refuses to retreat. He's not leaving without making these bastards pay. He loads up the cannon, lights the fuse, and blows the hell out of those airborne freaks. Dude's going full hero mode now, flexing humanity's strength right in front of the witches, who used to be the only ones able to take on devils. The devils hit by the cannonball are scattered in pieces across the field. Even Agatha is shook. Roland's weapon is absolutely terrifying, holding enough power to purely disintegrate the enemies from a distance. But she also knows the Tequila witches have more personal ways of getting revenge. They like to stab devils up close just to feel the satisfaction. She then asks her subordinates how many enemies are left to deal with. The Tequila witch reveals there are currently 16 left, with well over 70% of their airborne devils already dead. While it seems like an easy victory by now, the devils still haven't retreated, and she's worried they might be planning a final assault. There has to be a commander among these mad devils, and all the commander would care about is fighting to the last breath instead of retreating. But if that's the case, there's another question. Why didn't the devil charge at them from the start? The tequila witch explains the commander doesn't think any of them currently are worthy opponents to fight. If there was an extraordinary witch among the First Army's ranks, maybe the commander would have come down already to fight. Agatha notices how this divine soldier witch, Zoe, seems to know more about the devils than anyone else. So out of curiosity, she asks if Zoe is part of the alliance. Zoe reveals she was once a shadow guard of Lady Natalia, also known as the Red Lotus. Suddenly devils start marching toward them again, causing Zoe to rally the orders to protect the weak mortals and leave the enemy to them. Then comes terrifying news that shakes Agatha completely. Sylvie senses magic source reactions among the enemy. The devils are charging downward, with a magic-wielding devil leading the party. That giant devil finally lands, its massive size sending quakes and ripples through the air. The bastard is grinning ear to ear. Inside that giant bastard's mouth is another high-tier devil, screaming trouble. Even Agatha has no clue what the hell this is. That bastard roars to assert his dominance on the battlefield, then whips out a sword of his own. His whip literally slashes down the spear Roland had meticulously crafted. What's more impressive is that this weapon is totally made of magic condensation. The devil raises his sword and swings it down at Zoe. But our Giga Chad lady has a trick of her own. She instantly covers herself and Agatha with a shield impenetrable by this hobo. This is when the other divine witches grab their massive guns and start bombarding the bastard. Those bullets quickly fracture the devil's armor, taking him down on the spot. Zoe starts approaching the dying devil, much to Agatha's surprise. Then Zoe reveals that devils can only self-heal so much. When their magic runs out, they die instantly. She wants to spare its life for now, because it will even take care of its wounds and use red mist to further heal itself. She wants to keep this bastard around just to see how long it can stay alive. Agatha wants to know exactly what Zoe is planning. Zoe reveals there's an ability user on the other team who can connect minds. Of course, Agatha isn't sure if they should be connecting a person with a devil. Zoe already knows the risks. However, this devil is a commander, and it's worth the risk to find out what's inside its mind. Agatha reminds her that the days of the Alliance are over. Neither His Majesty Roland nor Tilly would force a witch into danger unless Camilla volunteers herself. Moments later, Sylvie reports to the soldier that there are large magical fluctuations toward the rear of the camp, so they better sound the alarm before worrying about anything else. Sylvie saw a monster similar to the machine invented by His Majesty Roland. But these are not machines. She orders everyone to aim for its limbs to take it down. The soldiers start bombarding bullets, taking down everything in their way, while that monster continues to march forward. Once those crawling monsters are in shooting range, the soldiers quickly target their legs, taking them down on the spot. But those creepy crawlers retaliate with fiery spears, while our soldiers don't hold back either. To safeguard everyone from the incoming attack, Shavi is ready to cast her shield magic and save the soldiers from the barrage. But to Shavi's horror, these spears are powerful enough to shatter and penetrate her barrier. Agatha asks for reports from the front line. Sylvie then delivers grim news. Monsters they've never seen before are attacking. The only thing helping them right now are the cannons. Those broken crawlies charge once again, their weird pipes over their bodies unleashing another spear attack. The soldiers aren't ready for this next barrage, everyone already exhausted. So Sylvie reports to Agatha that the cannon battalion needs time to get the cannons ready again. She wants to have a word with the battalion commander. Once the commander is listening, she reveals they haven't reset the cannons yet, so they need backup. The battalion commander still has one cannon in good condition, so he suggests Sylvie drop her coordinates so they can fire in that direction. The lady promptly gives the coordinates, and the soldiers successfully hit one of the targets. She continues giving precise directions, taking down these volcanic creepy bastards one after another. The other ordinary devils are trying their best to run fast and take the soldiers down, but their efforts seem futile against the frontline soldiers bombarding the hell out of these bitches. Thanks to the battalion commander's assistance and buying them some time, the cannon 1 and 3 are back, so she is ready to fire them anytime. The soldiers start unleashing havoc on these creepy crawlies, scattering them into bits like they're nothing more than disposable garbage. Finally, everyone breaks into this happy dance after defeating the menace. A while passes by and the soldiers are done piling up the dead bodies of these devils. Soon after, all the bodies are set on fire. So far, they've killed around 6,000 devils this time. Many of these suckers died from not having enough support from the red mist, and half of them were obliterated by cannons and rifles. Zoe is feeling pretty glad to have this victory under their name. It's actually crazy that after 400 years, this is the first conquest against the devils, and humanity finally came out on top. Around 4 days later, Roland hears the good news straight from Iron Axe himself. This victory against the devils brought them a lot of valuable treasure, like those 10 attacking beasts that got modified into transportation vessels. If Roland remembers right, witches can control those beasts too. Zoe confirms it. Those creatures have magic stones as their cores. The only thing needed is to train them, and then you're free to use them. They might be slowpokes, but they can carry heavy loads. Roland thinks about handing them over to the construction department, especially since the department lacks proper transportation. Next up, Roland inquires how the devils managed to avoid Sylvie's detection. Agatha explains that there are underground tunnels at the outpost that the devils had been using. It was connected to a cave 2 kilometers away, and the devils had set up a divine judgment stone pillar in there. It was their real stronghold. The divine judgment stone is massive enough to cover the entire camp. It's 5 meters in diameter and 10 meters tall, and the surface is incredibly smooth. Something like this is completely unprecedented. The more complete a divine stone is, the tougher and sturdier it becomes. Obtaining such a stone pillar couldn't have been easy. Even if they tried shooting at rocks in the northern mines, bullets would barely leave a scratch. The only method is to corrode it bit by bit with magical blood and then refine it using the same process. Roland realizes that either the devils have discovered some insane refinement method, or they've reached a deeper understanding of magic. He understands now the third divine battle is going to be brutal, so they've got to prepare as much as possible. Zoe also finds it alarming that the devils have already evolved way faster. She wants to figure out if these creepy, crawling beasts were their only trump cards, or if they've got more weapons hidden up their sleeves. They've got to figure this out as soon as possible, before it's too late. Then comes the most troubling part of this war, which even Iron Axe Hunter is hesitant to reveal. During the battle, over 190 soldiers were severely injured, and 75 have already bid farewell to this world. Roland sincerely orders Iron Axe to bring those soldiers' ashes back. They'll forever be part of Grey Castle. Suddenly, Agatha steps forward with another pressing matter that Roland must know. The elite devil they defeated is still alive, and she wants confirmation on whether Camilla can attempt to connect with the devil's heart. It's super risky, no doubt, but she's already talked with Zoe, and they've come up with a better plan. The plan involves turning the devil into a human, since connecting to a devil directly is too dangerous. Roland's shocked when he realizes what she's suggesting. She's apparently thinking about switching souls. Her plan involves transferring the soul of the devil into a body belonging to a divine punishment warrior. Roland asks what Camilla thinks about this whole situation. Agatha reveals that she didn't like the idea at first, but Zoe managed to convince her. What's comforting is that Zoe didn't force her into it. She simply volunteers to connect with the devil herself, nothing more. Betty suggested the plan, so she's also willing to shoulder the risks. Roland thinks for a moment before giving the green light. As he reflects, he's not even sure if humans and devils really have souls in the first place. If souls don't exist, then it wouldn't make sense for the tequila witches to switch bodies. He wants to understand more about the logic behind spiritual vessels. Like, if souls do exist, then why can't they survive without a body? If one could control and transfer a soul, that's basically immortality. Then there's also the mystery of his dream world, how it was formed and what it really means. Right now, there's this pillar of light that supposedly leads to the divine realm, according to the tomes of the underground civilization. But he still doesn't know what lies at the end of that light. There's so much he needs to uncover, and the origin of magic, the truth behind the battle of divine will, and more. As Roland and Tilly wait for the army to return, they both oversee and boost many infrastructure projects within Grey Castle. Trials of the glider are still ongoing, and the flight manuals keep getting thicker with every test. With enough content, Roland is ready to publish the manuals as a full-fledged book with a proper cover and title. Let's not forget the metal ships. They're finally stable enough to sail the waters after a few modifications. The Mage Tower for Agatha was also completed last autumn. A month and a half later, the First Army finally returns to home ground with victory flags raised high. The entire town cheers for the brave soldiers who fought to protect the lives and peace of the common folk. With this, the months of demons begin as the first snow starts to fall. We then cut to the prison cell where the creepy elite devil is being held. Zoe instructs her fellow witches to take care of the devil and make sure it doesn't die. Later, Zoe meets her other tequila friends, Pasha and the rest. Since Zoe looks calm and composed, Pasha and her group are sure this must be a sign of good news. The girl then finally reveals to her fellows how the devils today are totally different from the ones from 400 years ago. While Lady Alice had the right ideas, her plan would have led to humanity's downfall. Pasha feels proud they chose to follow Natalia instead. Though it's too soon to say who will win the Battle of Will, the only thing they can do now is hope for the best. Pasha even thinks about carrying out Lady Natalia's last words, but Alethea reminds her they still haven't found the chosen one, so they can't rush anything. Well, Zoe doesn't seem to have a problem with that. The tomes of the underground civilization never said the keyholder had to be male or female, so Roland might actually be their best shot. Pasha kind of gets the logic. After all, even if they find a witch capable of being the chosen one, they can always change the chosen one if needed. Zoe then reveals something interesting she recently noticed. When Camilla heard that Zoe wanted to volunteer to connect with the devil's mind, Camilla immediately agreed. Which probably means that while Camilla is unwilling to harm witches, she doesn't feel the same way about the divine soldier witches, those who are incapable of dying. Pasha then plans to create a path for themselves where they can prove their worth. She wants to become an irreplaceable source of power. After all, power isn't just about physical might. it's also about intelligence. Within Roland's dream world, there are academies, archives, and copious amounts of untouched knowledge that none possess in this world. All they have to do is dedicate some time to mastering the knowledge, so they can start with the basics. In a decade or so, Roland will find himself with talented assistants who will help him greatly, since mortal bodies deteriorate as they age, so only the tequila witches can pass down Roland's legacy. Pasha reminds her fellows that this plan only holds value if they can defeat the devils. For now, they better adjust the divine relic for the soul transferring process. A while later, Roland visits the third border town city, where all the tequila witches have gathered to pay their utmost respect to Roland Wimbledon. This recent victory against the devils has finally forced the tequila witches to fully bind their loyalty to Roland. Even Roland can sense that he's being respected more than ever before by the tequila witches. Predictably, he downplays his efforts by crediting everyone who was involved in the battle for the victory. Looks like he is here to witness the soul-transferring experiment between a devil and a witch. The divine relic has been set up, with both subjects ready for the procedure. The devil's limbs have been cut off to make sure it doesn't cause any trouble. To exhaust this bastard's energy, Zoe kept chopping off its limbs every time it regenerated, draining all its power. Of course, both Wendy and Roland are a little startled just imagining the sheer brutality Zoe had to stoop to. Anyhow, without further ado, Pasha and the others activate the divine relic, and soon enough, the transfer takes place. Looks like luck is on their side because the divine relic is able to sense the devil. Now all that's left is to wait for it to possess the human body. The devil starts going bonkers after being transferred into this human body. Now it's Camilla's turn. She will connect the devil's mind with Zoe. Before they start, Zoe warns her not to sever the connection until she says so. Camilla looks troubled, but Roland gives her consent, so she won't be responsible for any consequences. Eventually, Camilla starts her mojo and tries to connect the devil's mind to Zoe's. Zoe's body begins to suffer as the devil starts taking over. He starts speaking, calling humans lowly creatures and exuding his own superiority. Roland and Wendy look absolutely troubled, as they have no clue what's happening to Zoe. Turns out the devil is just acting cocky and mighty, but in reality, he doesn't have any control over this body. Zoe can move her fingers just fine. So Roland decides to confidently communicate with this bastard of a devil, reminding this crazy ass that he's the one whose army got defeated, not humanity. Roland further rubs salt in the bastard's wound by reminding him how his army got annihilated completely, and how this bastard himself got imprisoned. Thousands of devils turned to dust as they burned. With all that said, Roland questions this bastard. Who's the real lowly creature here? The bastard is in shambles, denying his defeat. He can't believe the devils got defeated. It's only possible if humans found a legacy shard and experienced an advancement. The only thing this devil can think of is that the weapons humans were using must be made with shards as well. Of course, just like Roland, we have no clue what this legacy shard is, or what advancement this hobo is talking about. The bastard seems to be in absolute denial. He spouts nonsense about how humans have never entered the Sky-Sea realm, so they can't be possessing legacy shards. In fact, humans don't even have the rights to enter that place. Then again, if humans didn't enter the Sky-Sea realm, how did they defeat the devil's army? So the devil refuses to believe that his race lost to some mere mortals. Well, Roland gives this bastard another reality check, reminding him that the fact he lost miserably doesn't change no matter how he perceives his defeat. He's the clown here who thinks everything is a lie. The devil gets annoyed for being called a joke. He's even more annoyed that Roland seems so easygoing about the battle of divine will, which is the key to an entire civilization's survival. Pasha also highlights how this guy calls that cone-shaped artifact a legacy shard. If you don't recall, anyone with a deep connection to this divine artifact can enter the stone and see 4 paintings of 4 civilizations. The devil laughs when he realizes humans call this legacy shard a divine artifact. He recalls how this crystal is a legacy of a clan, and if you devour it, you can obtain advancements. The devil further reveals how when those underground civilizations died, humans were all busy hiding away on the surface. Roland now realizes why humans haven't obtained the artifact. If what this devil says is true, then the artifact can only be obtained by killing one of the races. The underground civilization disappeared after the first battle of divine will. Back then, humans were busy fighting the devils and had no time to care about anything else. The artifact not only determines the life and death of a civilization, it's also valuable to other competitors. That means no civilization will rest idly unless the other is exterminated. Roland inquires why this war is called the Battle of Divine Will and wonders if it's a plan by humans. The devil finally decides to reveal the secrets, since humans are going to die eventually. Apparently this battle isn't about the gods, but about the races. The final advanced one will unlock a path to the origin of magic and obtain boundless power. With that power, one's will shall become divine's will. But then again, all of this is way out of reach for weakling humans, since they're bound to die. Or at least, that's what this devil thinks. Roland is visibly tense upon hearing the devil's warning. It looks like this bastard is capable of controlling Zoe's magic, even though he can't directly use the body. As he claims, he might not be able to control the body itself, but he can still mess with the magic. So with just enough control, the bastard does some sort of mojo, and poof, Zoe's soul disappears. Everyone goes into panic mode, with no clue what the hell is going on. They have no idea how to get Zoe back into her body. That's when Roland decides to move Zoe's light pillar into the dream world. Of course, Nightingale and Wendy both object to this ridiculous idea for obvious reasons. They don't want him getting involved in this mess. It's dangerous. What if that devil also ends up entering? But Roland's hoping they can deal with the consequences. All they need is to bring the Divine Judgment Witch with him into the dream world. That way, he can destroy the devil before it reacts. Nightingale insists Anna talk him out of it. But well, even Anna doesn't seem to be against the idea. After all, his stubbornness was the only reason she survived being hanged. Regardless of what happens, Alethea expresses her gratitude in advance on Zoe's behalf. But Roland's confident this mission will be a 100% success. He's looking forward to hearing that gratitude directly from Zoe. Pasha decides to send her strongest companion with him into the dream world. Before proceeding, Roland instructs Camilla not to cut off the resonance before they enter the dream world. If this is a battle of wills, Zoe might not necessarily lose. The scene cuts to this place known as the Void. There, we see the devil and Zoe sitting in this empty space. He's teasing her with backhanded jabs, convinced that her friends are going to abandon her right here, with no one coming to help. She might already be strapped to a metal bed like a pitiful worm. In fact, he's convinced her companions might have already killed her, seeing her as a threat. Since his words aren't getting any reaction, he decides to get physical and tries to threaten her by getting way too close. Finally, he gets the lady to speak, and she responds with an even sharper jab. When that isn't enough, she decides to throw hands with the bastard. And so, they fight. Straight up, no break for 5 days. And the bastard of a devil is looking rough. But of course, the bastard just heals himself back, while poor Zoe has lost her hand in the confrontation. She feels this fight isn't fair, especially since the bastard can materialize a damn sword with magic, while her only weapons are her limbs and her mouth. But it doesn't matter. Her severed limbs begin to reform in the darkness, growing back like she never lost them. To aggravate this bastard even more, she reminds him she's the one who made his life hell by cutting off his limbs over and over back then. It's now day 16 of their fight, and the devil bastard is literally in pieces. It's gonna be a long one, so Zoe decides to start a little chit-chat, just to pass the time. She asks him about this place. He responds that it's a space created by his consciousness, a fusion of magic and soul. Bugs like her will never understand the magnificence of it, or at least that's what this bastard believes. Well, this only causes the girl to chuckle a bit when she remembers the dream world Roland is capable of creating. She proudly tells him how that world is so much more. It has people, trees, the sky, the earth. But in here, it's just empty. The devil refuses to believe such a thing even exists. According to him, she has no idea how much magic it takes to create those details consciously. So creating an entire world just sounds ridiculous. If it does exist, it's only possible through the origin of magic. Zoe refuses to believe in such a thing. As far as she's concerned, the origin of magic is nothing but an abstract idea, just like the divine domain. She pushes him to share more, trying to get actual evidence. But this zesty-ass bastard ain't no fool. He's not gonna slip up just because she's trying to play smart. Since the bastard isn't giving her what she wants, she pierces his chest, giving him strokes of pain on the spot. Though honestly, she would have spared him all this pain if he just ran his mouth. The devil tries to act tough while trembling, saying he isn't afraid of pain. Well, she's more than happy to crank it up if that's what he wants. Honestly, it's a win-win. She's had this thirst for revenge building inside her for 400 years, and now she finally gets to quench it. Suddenly, Zoe wakes up in the real world, being tightly held by Alethea. She won't let go unless Zoe introduces herself and confirms her identity. Well, the girl isn't sure how to prove she's really their friend. Then she spots Roland lying beside her, and immediately assumes they're planning to use him to confirm her identity. But that's just going too far. She quickly yells out, claiming she's definitely Zoe, so there's no need to enter the dream world. But Alethea hasn't forgotten how the devil could control magic through Zoe's body. Then Roland wakes up without activating the dream world, much to Zoe's relief. Because who knows what that devil would have done if it had entered the dream realm. Eventually, Zoe convinces them she's truly their comrade. No more questions. With the identity crisis settled, they consider connecting Zoe's mind with the devil's again, in order to force him to spill everything he knows about other civilizations. Camilla successfully links them again. This time, it's Zoe's consciousness that dominates. The devil bastard has no choice but to spill all the juicy details. Turns out, the army of the Sky-Sea realm has been eroding this continent bit by bit, hoping to turn the whole world into an abyss. If the devils weren't busy fighting off the Sky-Sea realm, he claims they would have wiped out humanity centuries ago. That's a huge revelation Roland just got. Basically, the devils were already fighting on two fronts. Their war against humanity wasn't even the main battle. If this bastard is telling the truth, Roland realizes things are way more dire than he originally thought. Roland then gives Betty a thumbs up for taming this wild devil and making it spill everything, sparing Roland the trouble of falling asleep. She feels pretty glad to have Roland's praise all to herself. Meanwhile, the devil is pissed off at being called a devil, hating how humanity stereotypes every different clan as scary and evil. He gets cocky when he reveals that when the origin of magic appears again, everyone's gonna die. At the mention of the origin of magic, it clicks in Roland's mind that maybe this dude is talking about the Red Moon. Even Agatha is having a hard time believing that the Red Moon is made of magic. She's seen the Red Moon herself, and no matter what it is, it's still thousands of miles away from the world. She keeps questioning the bastard if there's any way to reach the Red Moon suspended in the sky. But that bastard doesn't say a word in response, much to Roland's annoyance. He asks if the bastard can at least tell them where the Sky Sea realm is located. Once again, the bastard refuses to say a single word. Roland asks another question, wondering whether the devils destroyed the underground civilization. Again, the bastard gives him the silent treatment, which annoys the hell out of our guy. He tries once more, asking if this shithead knows anything about those crawling monsters with pillars over their bodies. Well, the dude refuses to respond to any questions Roland asks, especially since he's already told more than he should have. Then he goes full maniac, daring them to kill him. He's sure his Lord Hacksword will definitely wipe out all the humans, and all the dead devils will be reborn through the origin of magic. Since this dude ain't giving any good answers, Roland decides to switch topics and question him about something else. He asks a question that directly challenges the capabilities of the devils. Roland's sure this devil won't miss the chance to boast, unintentionally giving out crucial details. And just as expected, the bastard starts rattling on about how he's stronger than anyone could ever imagine. Where the continent meets the Sky Sea realm, the devil's army is big enough to fill the sky. When the devils march, the earth will quake. He admits that those transcendent witches may have had a shot at defeating the Sky Lord in the past. But now, there's no way in hell they could do something like that. That's when Roland decides to give this bastard a reality check, reminding him he's seen nothing. The ones who hold true power would never let darkness consume the world. When the world is about to fall, they'd even burn their own souls so the living beings on Earth can still feel warmth. So if this devil's bold enough to think he's that powerful, then why doesn't he go ahead and be the light? With that, Roland wraps up his conversation with the devil and walks away, a smile on his face. That smile comes from finally getting some meaningful words out of this bastard. The first thing they learned is that the deep sea monsters were able to fight the devils and their elites, even though the devils had the red mist. That means the deep sea monsters are more complex and a force to be reckoned with. The second crucial detail is that devils didn't refer to their enemy from the Sky Sea realm as worms. In other words, those deep sea monsters must have undergone some kind of evolution. Anna points out that only one race has been eliminated so far, yet he's saying 2 races evolved, so it doesn't add up. Now that she thinks about it, she has an epiphany. The underground civilization never said the devils were responsible for destroying their civilization. The devil only cryptically said that only those who reach the Sky Sea realm may obtain the right to the legacy. Roland admits there must be an untold story here. Neither the underground civilization nor this devil has explained the whole picture. Wait guys, my brain hurts. I'm barely keeping up with all this unexplained stuff. There were deep sea civilizations, devils, humans, then the underground civilization that went extinct, and the tequila witches possessing their vessels. I hope we get clarity soon enough. For now, just go with the flow and don't overload. The next scene takes us to Roland holding a small meeting with all the important witches present. Agatha feels terrified just thinking that the Sky Sea realm really exists, and that these monsters are as powerful as devils. Wendy thinks maybe it's all made-up bullshit. She says they don't have to take this seriously until they confirm anything themselves. Phyllis admits they severely underestimated the devils. There's barely any info on what's on the other side of the Kingdom of Dawn, or what's on the other side of the continent. Phyllis has only read in the archives that the lands are barren, and all you can see are mountains and cliffs. The mountains are usually half submerged in water, only showing their full shape when the tide goes down. Roland finds this description pretty familiar. Now that he thinks about it, he remembers Thunder mentioning something like that when he described the Shadow Sea. Maybe his crew suddenly stumbled across the continent on the other side of Dawn. The Realm of Dawn is northwest of Neverwinter, while the Shadow Sea realm is east of the ocean. So it doesn't make sense how they managed to see that strange continent. If the world is round, vision should be limited, so how did they see something so far away? This really doesn't add up. He also recalls Tilly's exploration where she found underwater ruins. They weren't built by the Alliance, yet they were spying on the Devil's continent. Well, the only person who can answer all these daunting questions is Thunder. Agatha snaps him out of his thoughts. She empathizes with him, given how stressful it must be for him, but assures him she'll find a solution. Even Phyllis tries to cheer him up, telling him they'll get through this mess so he shouldn't be anxious. Roland notices how they misunderstood his frown as him feeling lost. He snaps back with his usual sass, claiming he isn't scared and has no plans to dump this mess on others' shoulders. After all, when it comes to clearing competitors and uncovering divine secrets, Roland finds way more fun doing it himself than leaving it to others. When facing a source of power like the sun, everything turns to dust, and devils aren't an exception. He's totally hyped to show them what he's capable of in the distant future. We then cut to Azima resting while her friend brings food. Azima seems visibly down, prompting her friend to ask what's up. Turns out, Azima regrets some decisions she's made. She regrets quitting Sleeping Island and not joining the Witch Union. She applied for multiple jobs at City Hall but wasn't qualified for any. Because of her arrogance, Doris and Whitepear have to feed all 6 of them, and they're stuck living in a tiny apartment. If only she hadn't rejected Wendy's proposal, things might have been different. She's blaming herself for everything. Her friend tries to comfort her, especially since everyone quit sleeping spell on their own, so Azima doesn't need to feel responsible for everyone. She's done so much for them before. Now it's their turn to give back. Suddenly someone knocks at the front door. It's Wendy, here to deliver a message that Majesty wants a quick chat with Azima. A while later, Azima and her friends put on their hoodies and walk through a blizzard to get to the castle. Seeing the girls shivering, Wendy assures them they'll take their jackets off once inside. Of course, Azima immediately jumps to the wrong conclusion, thinking maybe Roland's a molester who wants to fondle her chest. But reality's way different from her expectations. Once inside, there are radiators heating the place, making it warm and cozy. And there's this unfamiliar light coming from a chandelier she's never seen. Wendy takes off her jacket and tells Azima to take off her coat too, or she might start sweating. Seeing how massive Wendy's knockers are, Azima starts to spaz out. Literally, if Roland wanted to fondle anyone, it might as well be Wendy, since she's got the big ones, while Azima's chest is almost flat. Eventually, the girls meet Roland, and she quickly bows her head respectfully. She looks timid and anxious, so the gracious king tries to make her feel at home. The reason for their meeting is that he wants to recruit her. He was getting so impatient he couldn't wait another day, so he called her here at night. Azima is startled to hear this, and Roland proceeds to outline the contract details. He'll pay her 2 golden royals per month, and once she finishes her objective, he'll reward her with another 50. Of course, the amount of money she'll make is massive. Enough not only to live a life of luxury, but also to support her friends. Not wanting to blow this opportunity, she puts her ego aside and insists on knowing the nature of the work. Roland finally reveals she'll be searching for a different type of rock. He promptly pulls out a specific rock from his drawer and hands it to her. Azima hesitates to use her magic because, in the past, merchants hired her to find gemstones, but her magic only led them to Searing Flame Island, where they found nothing but gravel. Those merchants were just ignorant. She actually took them to the right place, a place where they could find gemstones. As for this mineral, Roland suggests she try it out right away. Azima quickly starts her mojo and soon finds a similar stone sitting right inside Roland's desk drawer. Roland raises the difficulty level and hands Azima another stone, challenging her to locate this one too. She begins focusing her magic again, and detects 3 sources matching the stone's signature. However, she can't pinpoint their exact location unless she gets closer. To help, Roland offers a hint. Head east, then north. By now, Azima is kinda curious to know what these stones even are. Why does he want them so badly? Roland simply cryptically reveals that these stones are the future of humanity. The rarity of the stones makes Azima nervous. If word gets out, not only could her mission fail, but she might even lose her life trying to obtain them. Roland reassures her that those who don't understand the stone's significance will just think it's ordinary rubble, but to him, its value exceeds gold. It's the key to unlocking what he calls the Brilliant Radiation mission line. Given how unpredictable the journey might be, Roland makes it clear that she won't be going alone. He introduces her to Sean, a sturdy, dependable man who will act as her protector. In addition, an engineering team will accompany them, with the highest priority being to locate the source of the stones. If she needs help from local officials, Sean will handle it. Azima can hardly believe that literal nobles will be working under her. That feels surreal. But Roland reminds her that the nobles no longer rule their territories. They follow central authority now. Obeying orders is their duty. Summoning a little courage, the girl dares to ask for a favor. She wants her salary sent directly to Doris. Roland agrees, as long as she has no problem with it. With her pride set aside and her purpose reignited, Azima accepts the job and says she's ready to depart at dawn. Roland wishes her luck and expects great results. It's becoming clear that Roland is cooking up something big. Something so massive that it would blow your mind if he revealed it. Well, prepare yourself for what you are about to hear. Bro is secretly trying to build a nuclear bomb, a trump card to obliterate anyone who dares push humanity too far. Ever since Lucia evolved on her coming-of-age day, Roland had Kyle Sichi and her identify the original uranium sample from a pile of separated elements and preserve it carefully. Based on intelligence obtained from high-level devils, Roland is certain that humanity will reach a critical juncture. The enemy can grow in unnatural, near absurd ways. ways Roland can't match through conventional means. So he turns to the ultimate wildcard, nuclear energy. Meanwhile, Nightingale is still wrapping her head around how such tiny rocks can turn thousands of devils into ash. And not just her. She knows for the fact that nobody else would believe it either. Roland isn't surprised. Even he once doubted the power of nuclear weapons, until history itself proved otherwise. He's thankful that Soraya wrapped the uranium sample in a transparent film. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared touch it. Now he's determined to push himself to the brink. No laziness, no hesitation. Not when the stakes are this high. Nightingale chuckles, as if Roland just cracked some sort of joke she finds adorable, but won't explain. As a reward, she plans to bring him a hot drink and a snack feast. Honey-glazed mushrooms, 5-spice roast meat, salt and pepper fried shrimp, and a turbulent drink from the kitchen. Of course, Roland sees right through her. She's probably just using his name as an excuse to make a treat for herself. The next day, we partook in the Oil Fraction Tower Project ribbon-cutting ceremony. The era of industrial energy and climate transformation has officially begun. Citizens cheer and enjoy the festivities. Iris, meanwhile, watches the chimney puffing out smoke and finds it strangely beautiful, almost poetic. Her brother, however, just sees it as a smokestack doing its job. She reminds him of the brutal winters back in Eternal Night City. The silence, the stillness, everything was frozen stiff. She used to think that was just what winter looked like. But Neverwinter changed her perspective. Even in the dead of winter, this city is alive, buzzing and breathing. That chimney isn't just smoke, it's earth breathing, proof that this land is awake and changing. Humanity now has the power to alter nature itself. She can't even imagine what wonders they'll create once they're strong enough to reshape the entire world. That's what she finds so profound and beautiful. Back in the witch dormitory, Lorgar wakes up. She had way too much to drink again. Totally the king's fault for handing out so many post-war rewards. If she keeps indulging in comforts like this, she'll get rusty. So, she decides to head over to Third Border Town and spar with the new witches to keep her skills sharp. As she heads out, she notices a piece of paper stuck under the door. It's a letter from her father. The doting dad is concerned about her well-being and asks how her progress has been. Well, now that she thinks about it, she hasn't made much progress recently. Sure, she has faced devils, but in terms of growth, she's stagnated. Further in the letter, she reads that Iron Sand City has been in disarray. Major clans that stayed behind seem unhappy about many of their people leaving for the Silver River Oasis. The details are murky, but the tension is real. She immediately rushes off to report to Roland. Coincidentally, Wendy is already on her way to fetch her, as Roland wanted to speak with her anyway. A short while later, she meets the prince who is ready to discuss her next mission she is supposed to carry out. But before saying anything about the mission deal, she reports some urgent news first, something about the southernmost region. Apparently, her father mentioned there's been some movement among the major clans in Iron Sand City. She doesn't think they pose much of a threat to the port of Clearwater, but it's better to stay alert. In fact, this was already considered when they were planning the migration. Maybe she could write a letter to her father, but Roland decides to handle it himself, since it's a political negotiation. More importantly, he has another matter to discuss. First of all, he introduces Miss May to her, famous for her title, the Star of the Western Region. May greets the wolf girl and expresses goodwill, saying she's looking forward to working with her. Of course, Lorgar has no freaking clue what the hell this woman is talking about. Roland then reminds her about the stuff he explained earlier about the theater, which has helped him a lot in spreading awareness about witches. Well, Lorgar remembers this pretty well, and she also remembers that he once wanted her to act in a play. But it looks like her shyness and public anxiety won't let her perform anything. Don't you worry, Roland got the perfect solution to deal with her shyness. He's got this sigil that can record a scene and play it back on a loop. So, she doesn't have to face the audience directly while performing. The story Lorgar is going to perform has been perfectly crafted to suit her needs. It took Roland almost half a month to finish writing it. Just to honor his hard work, the girl decides to give it a try. 3 days later, at the filming location of Wolfheart Romance, we see Lightning acting as the cameraman for the shoot, while Miss May is directing the whole thing. The next scene is supposed to show how Lorgar, playing the role of a princess, goes up against a demonic foe. As soon as she attacks, the bastard blocks her strike and summons a giant monster, and the role of the monster is played by Maggie, of course. Then come the supporting characters, showing up to help the princess drive the enemies away. Roland asks Anna if she's not going to take a break and relax with them. Well, Anna reveals she still has a lot of work to do, and the internal combustion engine parts need more tweaking. Besides, being with Roland is the best way to relax if she's being honest. That heartfelt moment reminds him of the promise he made to Anna, a promise to marry her once he ascends the throne. The next day, we see Baldbarov losing his damn mind when he learns Roland wants to publicly announce he's marrying a witch and making her queen. He's not sure if that's even appropriate. After all, witches can't have children, and that's the biggest issue they're facing. If something happens to the king, the nobles might start scheming to take over the throne. So the baldy bastard suggests marrying a minor noblewoman just to shut everyone up. Doesn't matter how he treats her afterward. Of course, Nightingale gets furious at this overly persistent old coot. She hates how he assumes it's totally fine for Roland to have another wife while being with Anna. As far as she's concerned, Anna would never tolerate that. Finally, Roland puts an end to this nonsense. He makes it clear he's not dying anytime soon. After defeating Zero, he inherited all of her lifespan, which means he doesn't necessarily need an heir. But since common folks don't understand the wonders of magic, he already has a plan to ease their minds about the heir issue. You see, a year ago, during the attack on Hermes, he found Goron Wimbledon's lover, who was pregnant with his child. Since the baby's hair and eyes are gray, it won't be hard to convince the public that an heir of Wimbledon already exists. Looks like Barov is fine with that plan. All they have to do is give Goron's heir a higher status and keep an eye on the kid's mother. With that settled, Roland instructs the Baldy to take care of the rest and prepare for the coronation. Once the old man leaves, he turns to Nightingale, pointing out that he never expected her to stand up for Anna like that. She apologizes for her outburst since she just couldn't keep her temper in check. Roland then teases her, saying he thought she'd be all sad and gloomy now that he's about to make things official with Anna. Well, Nightingale doesn't seem jealous at all, or at least that's how she acts. But we all know that Anna and Nightingale had a mutual talk about their relationship, and they came to some sort of agreement that they kept secret from both us and Roland. The next scene takes us to the town streets, now covered in icy snow. Walking through them is Goron's lover, holding a few loaves of bread in her hands. As she approaches her home, she notices a trail of footprints leading toward it. Panic instantly sets in, thinking her whereabouts have been exposed. When she sees a bunch of soldiers stationed outside, she bolts into the house as fast as she can. In her rush, she trips over the stoop and falls headfirst into the entryway. Inside, she meets Iris. Not surprisingly, Goron's lover already knows enough about the pair of the North, so there's no need for formal introductions. Before they start talking, Iris gestures for her servant to shut the door. Once they're in private, Iris reveals that she's here under the king's orders to bring back the Wimbledon family's bloodline to Neverwinter. The doting mother instantly assumes the worst, that Iris is here to take her son away and have him eliminated. But Iris quickly reassures her that if they wanted the child dead, there were far more efficient ways to go about it. The truth is, Roland wants her son, but the situation is a little too complicated to explain in full, so she keeps it simple. She explains that His Majesty has decided to marry a witch and plans to reveal Goron's child as the next heir to the throne to calm public opinion. Still, the mother isn't convinced. She fears that if the king ever changes his mind about having a child of his own, Shaylo's life could be at risk. Looks like we just learned the kid's name, Shaylo. Iris lays out the options plainly. Either take some money and run or come live in Neverwinter. Though if she chooses the latter, she won't be playing the role of Shaylo's mother anymore. Instead, she'll live as a servant in a noble household. The poor mother starts crying as she leans toward the first option, but that's when Iris offers a bit of hope. If she chooses the second option, she can still stay by her child's side and watch him grow. After all, Roland is not that heartless. They can create a story that Goron's wife came from a noble family that was destroyed in the church's attack, and before dying, she entrusted the child to her loyal servant. The mother starts to see how gracious the king is trying to be by not stripping her off of her child completely. She then asks the big question. Does her child actually have a chance of becoming king one day? Iris bluntly crushes that hope, telling her not to hold on to any illusions. That's when the mother snaps, demanding how she can possibly trust that Roland Wimbledon won't just have a child of his own someday, potentially putting Shaylo's life in danger. Unless Iris can give her a convincing reason, she'd rather die right here. And once she is dead, they are free to take her son. Just when the mother thinks it's over, Iris calmly tells her to pack her things. They'll be leaving in a few days. The woman then mentions the name of a tavern guy who could pose a threat since he knows about Goron's child. Iris assures her she'll take care of it. Later, we cut to the Eternal Night City Castle in the north, where the Pearl of the North meets her father. First thing she does is scold him for planting spies to keep tabs on her, which she clearly does not appreciate. They go back and forth for a bit. While Iris fills her father in on all the juicy developments, he also shares updates about the North's current situation. After a while, she returns to her room to write a letter to Roland. Cut to the man himself, buried in paperwork. That's when Nightingale sneaks up on him and pulls out one of his gray hairs. She's a little worried that he's already going gray at 30 from all the stress. But Roland assures her that he survived way worse. After all, stress was literally what killed him the first time. Suddenly, he starts coughing violently, which causes Nightingale to panic. He quickly reassures her that he's fine. Neither of them realizes it, but there's a romantic tension in the air, especially with how caring Nightingale is being in that moment. Their little moment is quickly interrupted when Wendy shows up to discuss something important. Nightingale instantly vanishes into mist and reappears on the couch, just to make sure Wendy doesn't get the wrong idea. Both of them pretend like nothing happened. Roland shifts the topic, asking Wendy what she needed. Turns out, according to last year's records, today is Lightning's coming-of-age day. After double-checking, he gives the order to reinforce the witch's apartment building and to inform Margaret and Thunder. Night falls, and in the witch's residence, Lightning is resting, surrounded by her friends for comfort. They hand her a sigil to help channel any extra magic in case things get unstable. Lightning is super curious about what kind of branch ability she's going to awaken. She's hoping it's something that removes the weight limit she currently has to deal with. Moon, being not so optimistic, reminds her that not everyone awakens a branch ability. It's pretty common not to get one. Scroll asks Wendy about Lightning's evolution probability score, to which the big booba reveals she scored a whopping 86 points, which is insanely high. Phyllis is so shocked she gasps for air. Roland, out of curiosity, asks why that score made her react so strongly. Turns out, back in the tequila era, sharing evolution scores was strictly forbidden to avoid witches comparing themselves and feeling inadequate. Roland reassures her there's no need to worry. Awakenings like this are going to be more common in this era anyway. A while later, Roland gets outside of the room, only to find Thunder outside, rocking that goofy disguise. The reason he isn't inside seeing his daughter is that, being the father he is, he knows he wouldn't be able to control his emotions, ultimately exposing his disguise. But Roland isn't sure how much longer he can keep hiding behind this fake identity. After all, she's bound to become an adventurer, and sooner or later, she'll find out the truth. Thunder then quotes a famous saying someone once told him, "Exceptional people often die because of their unparalleled talent, while those with average abilities usually live longer." The one who said this was Sander, the very person who led Thunder onto the path of adventure. Roland is surprised to learn that the disguise Thunder is rocking is based on a real person. Furthermore, Sander lived a quiet life and died saving Thunder from a sea monster attack. He said his only strength was kindness, yet he died because of it. That's why Thunder wishes to uncover the mysteries of those unknown lands before Lightning officially becomes an explorer. Until then, he wants to act alone. Roland finally understands what this man is trying to do. Basically, if there aren't any unknown places left to explore, there won't be any life-threatening risks either. Roland then promises the doting father that he won't let anything harm Lightning until the Battle of Divine Will ends. Suddenly, Wendy reports that Lightning's mana is condensing. Once he gets inside, the adventurous girl reveals the incredible power surging through her body. Though she currently can't release her divine will, she has so much mana inside that all 4 stones have already started to glow. Roland suggests she rest well today and tomorrow, but Nightingale wants to experience her awakening right now. She feels this urge to fly high into the sky and unleash all that condensing energy. Roland gives her permission to take Maggie and fly off. As soon as she takes off, she causes a massive explosion, shocking everyone to their core, including Roland. The next day, Roland is busy asking Baroff about the incident from the night before. Baroff reveals that a crowd of terrified citizens gathered at Town Hall, asking if Neverwinter had been attacked by devils or evil beasts. Roland suggests the old man frame the incident as an aftermath of weapon testing. Anyone injured in the blast would be compensated for medical bills. After the call, Roland's face turns gloomy and serious as he holds Lightning accountable for the mess. The poor girl owns up to her mistake and is willing to accept any punishment necessary. Roland stares at her thoughtfully, but eventually decides to forgive her. The little girl lights up like a kid in a candy store, so excited she jumps to give Roland a huge hug. But he stops her right there. He's really interested in learning more about her high-speed magic. She was only able to fly for less than 15 minutes, which clearly means it costs a massive amount of magic. She herself didn't expect to run out so fast, which caused her to fall from the sky instantly. Roland then asks Agatha if there's any record of such a branch ability in the Alliance. The closest thing Agatha's seen is magic synchronization. This branch ability forms a cocoon to protect the witch, but it consumes a lot of magic as well. Lightning proudly states that her magic can keep growing with practice, and there's no inherited limit to how many times she can advance. Being able to constantly surpass her own limits is so exciting. Wendy is proud of the little girl, but warns her to be cautious and not fly over the castle next time. Suddenly, Roland asks a surprising question. What will she do if there's nothing left to explore in this world? The question makes Lightning pause before she claims that the sky still holds a huge blank space waiting for her to discover. No wonder she's Thunder's daughter. Like father, like daughter. Soon after, he shares his plan to add a new publicity department at the town hall to release information. Non-emergency announcements will no longer be posted on the bulletin board. They will extend beyond Neverwinter. He plans to introduce newspapers, a new way to spread information efficiently. Since education is now widespread, paper and printing are no longer issues, and ink can be provided by black clouds. Without a reliable communication channel, rumors ferment in tavern talks, and once they spread, they're hard to correct. So, the next step is to find a reliable reporter for the publicity department. Their job will be to figure out where report-worthy events are happening. Wendy suggests having Honey for the task. A while later, Honey is brought before Roland. Since Wendy recommended her as the head of the new publicity department, Roland wants to ask if she's interested in the job. Meanwhile, Honey is busy feeling the texture of Roland's desk. She finds it unusual that the table is made of ordinary wood, nothing comfortable about it. Apparently, when Honey was training an owl, that owl told her Nightingale leans on this table every night for a long time. Of course, this causes Nightingale immense embarrassment, and she quickly shuts Honey up before she reveals anything more. Roland finally hands over the publicity department to Honey's capable hands. With her around, he's sure the gossip section of the newspaper will never run out of content. Seems like no witch is safe from having their nighttime showerhead antics exposed. The scene cuts to this tavern, where we see that noble-looking gentleman once again. He's reading this diary that's full of all kinds of stuff that's been the talk of the town lately. Suddenly he hears a clamor outside, so he rings a bell and summons his waitress. He inquires about the commotion downstairs. She reveals that everyone's buzzing about the newspaper. His Majesty has mentioned that it'll take over the bulletin board. The mention of a newspaper gets this noble guy curious, and he quickly hands the woman a golden royal to fetch it for him. A few minutes later, the guy finally has the newspaper in his hands. Upon holding it, he notices the paper is made of cheap straw ash, cost-effective and perfect for mass production. As long as the contents are interesting and the price is reasonable, people are definitely going to buy it. They both read about the upcoming theater show known as Shadow Magic. If you don't recall, Shadow Magic basically refers to the digital movie Roland has produced, which is going to be broadcasted on a screen. Everyone in town's talking about it and dying to watch the show. By now, even this nobleman is intrigued and decides to rush to town to book a showing for himself. The queue is long, with people pushing one another to get tickets first. Miss Me and Carter are also there. From afar, Me notices her teacher, Kajin Fis, entering the theater through a private door, so she and the other actresses rush to meet their senior. She even tries to introduce herself, but Kajin's assistant tries to shoo the girls away. She insists on talking to him, hoping to clear up any misunderstandings that might be keeping them apart. But her pleas fall on deaf ears as this jerk keeps being dismissive. Then Kajin himself speaks up and lets her come inside, but only her and everyone else will stay outside. Once they settle into the office, Kajin addresses Me and asks her not to play the upcoming show. Of course, this makes no sense to me. Why would this old coot want the show cancelled? Especially since it's already filmed and doesn't even need live actors. The three actors inside the room start trash-talking Me, accusing her of stuff even I don't understand. Turns out these salty bastards are just mad that Me's giving them serious competition, despite her earlier promise to step away from acting. The old man is also clearly disappointed. He still doesn't get why she left the Grand Opera House just to do some random plays in a small town. As a teacher, he sees her as wasted potential who gave up on refining her acting skills. Mai gets why he's so worked up. He's the type who truly loves theater and obsesses over perfecting every little nuance of a performance. But she also remembers how much the audience loved her in Border Town and how they couldn't get enough. So yeah, she's annoyed that this old man is judging her work without even watching it. And those so-called random plays he is talking about, they carry real meaning. Witch's Diary helps people understand witches and clear their stigma. Dawn encourages everyone to work hard and change their fate. The new city helps newcomers adapt to Neverwinter's rules. And A Hero's Life helps those who lost loved ones in the war regain their strength. She clearly remembers his teachings, like how the best plays immerse the audience in the lives of the characters. She's not saying the play Kajin's been preparing for 2 years won't be great, but she's sure the Starflower Troupe's upcoming Wolfheart Destiny is equally mind-blowing. She's confident that once he watches the play she's created with Neverwinter, he'll change his mind. With those words, she leaves. The old man decides to give it a shot, telling his assistant to grab tickets for the upcoming show. At sharp 10 a.m., there's already a huge queue, and the house is packed. Kajin and his disciples have already found seats. The crowd goes wild recognizing Kajin, the greatest theater master of this era. His disciples, though, are clearly annoyed they had to come to something they see as beneath them. But their master shuts them up, reminding them he's not just here to enjoy a play. He wants to see if a bunch of newbies can really pull off a perfect story. Looks like the show's about to begin, with someone in the background welcoming the viewers. Since this is going to be an unprecedented viewing experience, everyone's told to brace themselves for the unexpected. Finally, the play starts, and the entire hall begins to cool down, pulling the audience right into the atmosphere of Scene 1 on the screen. There are other visual effects too, all to enhance the experience. Once the session ends, the theater lights come on. And just like that, Kajin admits his defeat. This so-called shadow magic show completely blew away his expectations and made his knowledge of acting feel obsolete. Even his disciples are bawling their eyes out in humiliation. But Kajin hasn't given up yet. Sure, shadow magic has its strengths, but it also has its weaknesses. So he gives his disciples some optimistic pep talk, planning to bounce back stronger than ever. The next day, Baroff is talking about the insane response the shadow magic show has gotten. Merchants are desperate to sponsor the show, pushing to expand the business by selling popcorn and drinks. As they chat, Iris returns from the north with Goran's lover. The lover lady greets Roland respectfully. He hopes she'll enjoy Neverwinter's weather. Before talking business, he asks her to get some rest first. Once she's dismissed, Barov goes ballistic, reminding Roland they can finally proceed with his coronation now that the heir issue's resolved. Almost a week later, people are gathered outside the castle, with Roland and Anna getting ready for the ceremony. When they come down, every important person in City Hall is standing in double file. As Roland approaches the crown, Anna picks it up and places it on his head. Afterward, he presents himself to the cheering public, who are over the moon to have him as their king. Nobody's going home with an empty belly because there's enough food being prepared for everyone, and they're all loving it. Meanwhile, our couple is sharing their own little romantic moment. Anna wants to hear her full name from Roland's lips, and he doesn't hesitate while calling her Anna Wimbledon. No matter how many times he says it, it always warms her heart. After a good smooch, she expresses her wish to become the Minister of Industry. She wants a little change, like she wants to be an independent woman and not rely on her husband. Well, this 21st century husband has no objections with that. He never wanted her to stay cooped up in a backyard anyway. Let's give the couple some space for romance and jump ahead a few days. In town, a boy is handing out newspapers packed with juicy news. Turns out the newspaper headlines feature Roland Wimbledon becoming king and marrying a witch. Cut to Horford Quinn's office in the Kingdom of Dawn. He's reading that same newspaper. Seeing Roland on the front page, Quinn can't help but notice how fast Roland's risen. Just 3 years ago, he was a nobody lord of a remote town, and now he's king. What troubles Andrea's father, though, is the pattern. Kings tend to appear when chaos is near. So it's not a stretch to think the world's on the edge of collapse. Suddenly, his butler arrives with a letter from Lord Hill Fox. It says a mining team from Greycastle has entered the Dawn border, and they're hoping for Quinn's assistance. Hearing this, Quinn stands up and instructs his butler to inform Count Rossi to lead his knights and welcome the team. He also tells him to alert the lords along the way to provide any support needed. We cut to the town in the Dawn Kingdom. The marketplace is buzzing with stories about devils and how terrifying they are. Through the busy streets, 2 witches are walking, hearing all the tales people are sharing. These girls seems to be pure witches. After the acting pope died, one of them led the remaining Judgment Army to retreat from the new holy city and rebuild the church here. Unexpectedly, after hearing about Hermes' fall, the Bishop of Grand Duke Island betrayed them and became its new count. He even hanged their envoy outside the city. Now the witches and church's followers are hiding like mice in the shadows. But she's planning to turn things around. She's waiting for the battle of divine will, and she's sure the world is headed for chaos. She is counting for days until she unites with Roland in hell.